government, and they will not be forgiven.
Very interesting. So you're all refreshed. When did you get back?
Got back, actually, I got back last Thursday.
Look at it. Got back last Thursday, bit of a tan. Did you give any thought to me at all in my sick bed?
Well, actually, I did. We did talk about you a bit.
Yeah, that you bloody did.
It's your island.
The sun, just my island,
yeah. We did laugh that you weren't there.
Yeah, thanks, O'Sullivan. He's here from 7 o'clock, the amazing Kev O'Sullivan. Keep your calls coming, 0344 409 1000, text to 87222. Petrie here from 10 o'clock tonight, and Mike Graham back with Morning Glory from 6 o'clock. Thank you for watching. If The Voice receives enough support, I'll be back tomorrow. Ta-ra!
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Now then, where were we? Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk all the way to 10 o'clock. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and this is my first show of 2025. I will be steering you through 3 thrilling hours of news, views and topical debate. You know the drill. Get involved, get it off your chest. Get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. The year starts now. Here's what's coming up. What's gone wrong between Nigel Farage and Elon Musk? Why has the world's richest man rounded on the Reform UK leader? Why is he calling for a new party leader? Is it all over their differing attitudes to Tommy Robinson, or is there more to this unlikely feud? And what does it mean when it comes to Musk's fabled £1 million donation? Is that off the cards now? 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile, most right-thinking people believe there should be a public inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. But if you think that, Two-Tier Keir thinks you're far right. Thinks you're climbing aboard the far-right bandwagon. What on earth is he talking about? 0344 499 1000. Does our pathetically poor Prime Minister fear that we might find out about him when he was the dismal Director of Public Prosecutions, failing to deal with the horror in Rochdale? Does our dear lousy leader worry about the mathematics of politics? Does he fret that such an inquiry might alienate the Islamic community and lose him the Muslim votes he'll need at the next election? 03444991000. In other news, delusional Starmer today defended his record on the grooming gangs, even though the chronology of his lack of action doesn't exactly show him in an impressively proactive light. And boy, are Keir and the gang getting their knickers in a twist about St. Jess Phillips, the Home Office minister who cares so much about vulnerable kids, she blocked an inquiry into why they were not protected from the Pakistani grooming gangs. She's a great woman, stormed Health Secretary Wes Streeting. Really? Or is she just another snivelling politician doing the wrong thing to spare her incompetent boss's blushes? 03444991000. Also tonight, priority NHS treatment for migrants. Asylum seekers get seen within 15 minutes under a special system, while British citizens tend to wait about 15 hours. Isn't that special? 03444991000. Plus, shocking leniency for pedos is getting worse, with only 17% of child sex abusers convicted over the last year getting prison sentences. The rest were effectively let off with those useless, pointless things, suspended sentences. Community service, all right, you know, a bit of free work, not exactly punishment of the decade, but suspended sentences amount to letting people off. They just walk away, never to be seen again. Ask Hugh Edwards. Unbelievable. 03444991000. Also, the latest on Blake Lively and the row that's rocking Hollywood. More wild spending at the BBC, this time by the Director General Tim Davie himself, who spent thousands of pounds of licence fee payers' money staying at luxury central London hotels when he only lives an hour's journey away. That's great, isn't it? And finally, the latest on Meghan's hilarious idea that anyone wants to see her baking cakes for her mates in California. Entertainment factor zero. Well, we look forward to that hitting the screens, don't we? Not. Let me tell you, that is going to fail. What's it called? With Love Meghan, or Meghan with Love. Yeah, right. Tell that to her dad and the family that she's sent to Coventry, that she's cut out of her life so ruthlessly. Honestly, that woman. 03444991000. Kinsey Schofield joins me later to discuss the latest shenanigans in Montecito. So, all that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday night together. And with me for the first hour is political commentator and my fellow epic presenter, Russell Quirk, who's been putting in right old shift over Christmas, haven't you?
They let me loose, I know, and I didn't get fired after the first try, so, yeah, all's good. I need you lot to go on holiday a bit more often, Kev.
I'm available. I'm available. Lots to talk about today, Russell, but let's kick off with certainly the big political story, one that has shocked Nigel Farage himself, but Elon Musk suddenly rounds on Nigel Farage and says that he hasn't got what it takes and the Reform UK party needs a new leader in a rather excoriating tweet. As to say, Farage says this is a surprise. Now, they're trying to play it down. Everyone's saying, oh, Nigel's handled it really well. Well, there's Elon Musk's tweet there. Well, I mean, I think he's handled it maybe as well as he could. But, you know, let's not beat about the bush. This is a bad moment for Reform. They shouldn't be falling out with Elon Musk. Yeah, a lot of Reform supporters won't like this situation.
Yeah, I think if you're on the right, and when I say the right, I mean, you know, the sensible centre-right, what we used to call the centre-right, but as we'll come on to is now the far right.
The far right,
The far right. This is disappointing on the basis that, you know, we want to see a bit of unity. Obviously, we've got this understandable friction between the Conservatives, Kemi Badenoch, and Reform, Nigel Farage. That's kind of understandable for now, although, of course, they're going to have to do something about that over the next 2 or 3 years if they want to unify and actually depose Starmer. But yeah, so I think this was surprising. It was disappointing. I think this probably does centre around the whole Tommy Robinson debate, dare I say, on the basis that Elon Musk seems to have rather a soft spot for him, and of course Nigel Farage doesn't. But the cynic in me, Kev, thinks that this might actually be a setup. This might be a PR play. Now, yes, I might be crediting politicians with a little bit too much intelligence here, but when you think about how Farage now is setting his stall out as the leader of Reform, he wants Reform to be seen as more professional, less extreme. He's definitely distanced himself from Tommy Robinson. He has got rid of a few party members, you know, candidates and so on, that have said silly things in tweets. He did a lot of that in the run-up to the general election. So we could be forgiven for thinking that this is a kind of a cynical setup to make Nigel Farage look more sensible. The fact that he won't give in to Elon Musk, the fact that, you know, he has said that he's not going to give in to the whole Tommy Robinson issue. There was talk a few days ago, before this happened, of course, about, you know, Tommy Robinson not being allowed to join Reform. And as far as I'm aware, I don't think Tommy Robinson has asked to join Reform. So that came out of left field. So I might be crediting too much sophistication.
I've got to say, I think you are, Russell, because if this is a ploy by Nigel Farage, it's hapless and useless. It doesn't look good in this situation. This is bad because a lot of Reform UK supporters are either sort of very keenly supportive of Tommy Robinson, or they're vaguely supportive of Tommy Robinson. And they like to believe that the Reform tent kind of includes people like Tommy Robinson, includes him, and by saying no, he can't join, he's out, this will lose Reform UK quite a lot of support. It's all very well to say, oh, it's brilliant, he's turned around and said no to the $100 million. I don't know what will happen now to that donation. I've got this feeling, though, somewhere down the line there might be some kind of rapprochement between Farage and Musk, and I suspect that Donald Trump might get involved, because this is not a good, this is, you know, they're trying to play it down, but this is a really, really bad moment.
Well, Trump won't be happy, will he? So Trump and Farage are very, very good mates, of course. You know, they are thick as thieves, definitely on the same hymn sheet. So, you know, given that Trump and Musk are also kind of joined at the hip for now, lots of speculation insofar as how long that particular duo of alpha maleness will continue before that perhaps crumbles. But anyway, so, you know, it's not a good look, and it is very, very inconvenient. It's also a bit odd that it seems Elon Musk is now talking about, you know, Rupert Lowe being the natural leader of Reform, when he's never even met him, doesn't even know him.
I mean, to be fair, he did say that. I haven't met him, but what he's tweeting, what he says seems to make a lot of sense. I think a lot of people do really like Rupert Lowe.
I think he's very impressive.
He might be the purist among the Reform set. Yep. The thing about Reform is, right, that they're walking a very difficult tightrope that this difficult situation has exposed. Now, Farage, quite rightly, he wants to be a potential party of government. That involves trying to depict a sort of mainstream image. Now, a lot of Reform UK supporters don't want them to be mainstream. They don't want them to be centrist. You've got to win the centre to win elections and all that. They want Reform UK to be different, not to be part of the kind of centrist Labour-Tory blob. You can't put a cigarette paper between those two parties and all their rubbish policies. They want Reform UK to be different, and they want Reform UK to be ploughing a definitive, definable right-wing path. And
it's old school conservatism.
Yeah,
Thatcherism.
Now, but that involves, you know, denouncing Tommy Robinson. I'm not here to support. I'm not going to say anything about Tommy Robinson. I don't have any particular strong feelings about him, but I do think he's important in this debate. And denouncing Tommy Robinson is not good for Reform UK. It makes them sound like Keir Starmer or Kemi Badenoch.
Yeah, and it reminds me of, when David Cameron labelled UKIPers as swivel-eyed loons.
Yeah.
And actually most of us still look upon UKIP as being a bit out there, a bit odd, a bit
Still
extreme.
there, by the way, still there.
Still hanging on by their fingernails. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there is an element of trying to professionalise reform going on here, in terms of, it not being seen as the swivel-eyed loon party, another rehash of UKIP and so on. So I think there is a job to do there in terms of candidates, membership, and kind of public perception generally being that this is a kind of, it is a mainstream party. And I hear what you say with regard to the membership of Reform, but Reform are never ever going to get elected to government on their own, full stop, let alone if they are seen as fringe. The clever thing to do, I think, is in 2 to 3 years' time, certainly not now, is there needs to be an agreement. There needs to be a deal done between Reform and the Conservatives. Now, not a merger, not a coming together as one party, but a selective choice of where each party stands, where they don't stand against each other. In that way, to your point, Kev, what they then manage to do is to take lots of votes on the right, including Conservative votes, by way of those people that think Reform are perhaps a bit too right-wing and like the Conservatives in terms of their kind of more centrist stance. That is the way you beat Labour. That's the only way you beat Labour.
Yes, the problem is, in order for that to happen, I believe that the Tories, and I think they probably will do this fairly soon, they're going to have to ditch Kemi Badenoch.
Yes.
But Kemi Badenoch so far has been a disaster. Kemi, if you're watching, stop saying what you're going to do. You've been in the job a couple of months. You haven't done anything. Do something. Stop saying you're going to... You wait. We're really going to take Labour on. You wait. No, we don't want to wait. Get on with it.
It's all platitudes and headlines, isn't it? I had this debate when I was hosting a week or two ago, and I said to Peter Barnes, I think, look, we need to see Kemi Badenoch's mettle. We need to know what she actually stands for, particularly on the important issues of, guess what, the economy and immigration, the things that most people are particularly concerned about. His view as a ardent, what I called Conservative apologist, was we're just going to have to wait and see. I don't think the electorate, and particularly the Conservative Party, can or should wait and see what this Conservative Party now stands for. They've had 3 or 4 years of it being somewhat centrist. Previous to that, under Cameron from 2006-7 onwards, a real mishmash of kind of, net zero-ness and hugging hoodies and so on.
It's been a left-wing party.
So now it is absolutely time, particularly because Reform are so prominent, for Kemi Badenoch to come out of the blocks and say, this is my policy on immigration. This is my policy on crime. This is my policy on the economy. She needs to do that to get the right on side. Otherwise, she's just going to run out of the little credibility she has got. And as you say, she's going to end up being ousted before she even gets a chance to set out her policy plans.
And by the way, she needs to learn something about what it means to be a political leader. I was away, of course, when this happened. You would have covered it. But when the membership numbers of Reform UK overtook the Tories, for her to turn around and say, well, it's just not true. Well, it was true.
Yeah.
That isn't good enough. That is absolutely not good enough. It's not a child, it's not a kid squabble in the playground. No, you didn't. Yes, we did. No, you didn't. Yes, we did. Reform UK's membership overtook the Tories, and the best she could do was say it's not true. Well, it was true.
Well,
that really is not going to cut the mustard.
It was a very amateur thing to do, particularly she was wrong. It looked very, very juvenile, very tit for tat, and actually she earned herself a very chunky Plank of the Week nomination, I can tell you.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think she's not cut out for this job. She's known to be very combative. She's very argumentative, and that's classic Kemi. That is.
She's also
something
labelled...
She gets a fact she doesn't like, so she just stomps her foot and says it's not true.
She's also been labelled by many that are close to her as lazy.
Yeah. Tim Montgomery tweeted that she was lazy. I mean, certainly so far. I mean, she's trying to paint this picture that, she's, holding her powder, waiting to pounce. I'm working out my strategy. And this has been like 2 months now, hasn't it? Well, the other interpretation of what Kemi has been doing for the past 2 months is a big fat zero, not much at all, enjoying the Christmas parties.
Well, it may well be that some of her advisors are doing the old classic, which is to say, look, Labour are doing so badly, all you need to do is sit back and say nothing, but I don't think that's good enough.
That's nonsense.
And interestingly, not that I think Robert Jenrick was the magic bullet for the Conservative Party. I think he would have been better, but of course his integrity in terms of whether he really had right-wing credentials or not, I think was really kind of up for debate. But it was reported 3 or 4 days ago that that the Robert Jenrick for Leader WhatsApp group has restarted.
Yeah, I bet it has. There's going to be quite a few so-and-sos for
busy.
leader groups.
It's busy.
They sense it. She ain't going to do it. I don't think she's good enough. I don't think she has quite understood the nature of her job. And, you know, squabbling with your right-wing rival, I mean, that is a bad look.
As Farage said, you should be attacking Starmer.
Exactly right, exactly right. Not Farage. She needs to get her act together. I still wish her all the best, but it's not looking good for Kemi, I'd say that. I wouldn't mind betting this time next year, she's not in the job as Tory leader.
I agree.
Maybe Starmer won't be around either, because the odds are really stacking up against him. I mean, can that guy put a foot right? Next up, we're going to be talking about his ludicrous defence of himself today, and on his record for dealing with the grooming gangs when he was Director of Public Prosecutions. His record is a disgrace. He effectively let it happen. He's delusional about himself. Oh, no, I was a brilliant DPP. He was a lousy DPP. He let this happen. Nearly 30 Sun journalists he tried to prosecute, to put them in jail for doing their job. It cost us, taxpayers, millions and millions and millions of pounds to put innocent journalists in the dock who were just doing their job. Every single Sun journalist was acquitted. So he wasted a load of our money on some sort of political attack on a right-wing newspaper. That's what that was. And then we now have the grooming gang scandal, which he presided over and did very little about. We'll talk about that next, so stay tuned.
Grateful for anything that brings this back onto a national public platform, because it is such a monumental failure of decades in this country. So anything that draws us back into these issues, for me, is worthwhile. I think what we have to be careful of, though, Julia, is that we don't deflect from the central issues of this, which is children being raped and being failed by the authorities.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This, for me, was the big story of the day. Absolutely disgraceful, disgusting. The Prime Minister labelling you, me, anybody who feels, who believes there should be an inquiry, a public inquiry into the Rochdale grooming gang scandal, into the entire grooming gang scandal, Pakistani men grooming young girls, mostly white working class, for their sexual gratification. Keir Starmer says if you feel there should be an inquiry into that dreadful miscarriage of justice, because that's what it was. These guys were allowed to prosper in their nefarious activities because the police and the authorities were terrified of being called Islamophobic or racist if they arrested them. Maggie Oliver, the copper up there, of course, exposed this whistleblower. And that story, Maggie's story, was told in a 2017 BBC drama called Three Girls. This was of three girls who were one of the, they think, more than 1,000 victims. Young girls groomed, drugged for sexual purposes by mostly Pakistani grooming gang men. Remember this is the trailer for Three Girls back in 2017.
There's no such thing as a child prostitute. What there is a child who's been abused.
The 9 men have been released on bail.
How many victims?
47. And when they went to the police, nothing was done about it.
No one bothered.
What do you think that does to a kid?
We treat them as human beings and we say we're sorry.
What is the point if a jury is not going to believe she's telling the truth?
I watched her interviews and I believed her.
There you have it. Still with Russell Quirk. If you remember, Russell, the reason that these kids were not protected was that coppers, social workers, the authorities generally decided they were council estate trash and they'd chosen this form of activity as a lifestyle choice. Absolutely outrageous. They were children. They were children. They were being raped. They were being sexually abused. They were being drugged. It's a disgrace. Now, Keir Starmer today, we'll play this in just a second. I think this is the most disgusting slur on the people of this country I've ever heard. He turned round. Now, I feel there should be an inquiry. I'm sure you feel, Russell, there should be an inquiry.
A proper one.
Millions of right-thinking people, quite rightly, believe we need a public inquiry. I know we have too many of them, but this is important. These were kids. Were not protected. They were abandoned to their atrocious fate by people who were too scared to get involved in case they were called racist or Islamophobic. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. Anyway, if you believe there should be an inquiry into this tremendous, catastrophic injustice, according to Keir Starmer, your Prime Minister, you are far right. You are hitching your wagon to a far-right bandwagon. You are far right. Why on earth, Russell, is it far right to want an inquiry into this tremendous miscarriage of justice, into these poor kids who were not protected by people who should have known better? Let's just, before we discuss this, this is Keir Starmer, delusional little man that he is, defending himself. He was the Director of Public Prosecutions when all this was happening.
Those that are spreading lies and misinformation as far and as wide as possible, they're not interested in victims. They're interested in themselves. And those attacking Jess Phillips, who I'm proud to call a colleague and a friend, not protecting victims. Jess Phillips has done 1,000 times more than they've even dreamt about when it comes to protecting victims of sexual abuse throughout her entire career. What I won't tolerate is politicians jumping on the bandwagon simply to get attention when those politicians sat in government for 14 long years, tweeting, talking, but not doing anything about it. Now so desperate for attention that they're amplifying what the far right is saying. So that's what I say about Jess Phillips. Thank you.
So you're far right if you want an inquiry into this scandal.
Well, and of course...
that's disgusting.
Look, of course, this is reminiscent of the same tactic, and it is a tactic that Keir Starmer used in the summer with regard to those that were protesting on the streets about what happened in Southport and beyond, and then protesting about what he said about those protesters being far right. It's the same lazy trope, it's the same distraction technique, but it is also deeply insulting for the Prime Minister of this country not to recognise and support the thousands of victims that were raped many, many times by largely Pakistani grooming gang, rape gang men. And look, there's a whole bunch of reasons, I think, behind this as to why we are where we are. I think, yes, there is the votes in front of victims type approach of the Labour Party now because, you know, they don't want to alienate the Muslim community, who, of course, are generally the perpetrators of these criminalities, these rape acts. So there's definitely that. I suspect also, when it comes to any investigation, if it were done properly, if it had teeth, if it was done by someone unbiased, so not government, but, you know, an independent,
which is the idea,
KC or whatever, the number of politicians, bearing in mind most of these areas were Labour-controlled areas, so I suspect the number of politicians, council officers, senior police officers, and, of course, senior national politicians. I mean, we hear that Gordon Brown wrote a letter when he was Prime Minister to the Home Office saying, do not prosecute these rape gangs because the girls involved, bearing in mind they were under the age of consent, so therefore it was automatically statutory rape. That is what it is, regardless of whether they apparently so-called consented
I think
or
it's
not.
A lot more than statutory.
Well, but legally, regardless of any so-called defence, how they were dressed, how they acted, whatever, this stupid excuse for lifestyle choices. If a girl's under 16, it is automatically an offence. And we know that the police and politicians saw with their own eyes what was happening and decided to cover this up. Yeah. And Gordon Brown was seemingly complicit on the basis of saying that these girls were making lifestyle choices and therefore the perpetrators shouldn't be prosecuted. Keir Starmer may have come out in 2012 and turned the heat up a little bit on those gangs. He says today, well, you know, when I got involved, everyone that I prosecuted went to court. Yeah, well, but what about the people that you didn't prosecute?
Let's talk about him, right? He boasted today, I was very proactive, yeah. So 2013, he gave the green light. That was the last year of his tenure as the...
Which started in 2008.
Yeah, I know that. 2008, obviously. 2008 to 2013. So 2013, he gave the green light to prosecutions of the gangs. 2013. Now, let's look at the chronology of this. In 2014, the J report found that at least 1,400 kids had been abused in this way that we've been describing by almost exclusively Pakistani predators for 16 horrific years leading up to 2013. All the time, our hero, Keir Starmer, from 2008, for what is that, 6 years, was the Director of Public Prosecutions. Now, lest he tries to say, oh, well, you know, I didn't know about it, in 2011, the Times newspaper did a massive expose of exactly what had been happening. Nothing, no reaction from the Director of Public Prosecutions. Only in 2013 did he finally give the green light to prosecutions. So he's boasting about how brilliant he was, but no, he did nothing. From 2008 until 2013, he did nothing. His parting gesture was say, yeah, let's prosecute a few of these guys. And today he's boasting about how good he was. Yep. Unbelievable. You're a disgrace. Almost as bad as when you tried to nick all those Sun journalists. He was a useless DPP. He's so delusional about himself, he keeps boasting about it. You've got nothing to boast about, Starmer. Nothing at all.
Well, and also Maggie Oliver, of course, who is on this channel a lot and has been, particularly over the last few days, understandably talking about this, was very, very clear. I think it made the front page of some newspapers this morning, where she said that Keir Starmer is as guilty as anybody over this, because effectively him sitting on his hands, him either protecting the Muslim vote or protecting Labour colleagues, meant that this carried on for years and years and years because of his apathy and inaction.
Yeah, and so Elon Musk tweeted that Starmer was complicit in the rape of Britain. I think he means that on a number of levels. And then he went on to really infuriate the Labour lot by daring to criticise Saint Jess Phillips, the woman who cares so much about vulnerable kids that she's blocked an inquiry into the Rochdale grooming scandal. So that's how much she cares. Don't give me that claptrap. West Streeting said, it's a disgraceful smear of a great woman who has spent her life supporting victims of the kind of violence that Elon Musk and others say that they're against. Really, West? Really, West? Well, she's not supporting them right now, is she? She's done this for two reasons. They have blocked this for two reasons. One, Starmer is going to come out of it looking really, really bad.
Complicit.
They want to spare his blushes, what a lousy DPP he was, how he didn't do anything to protect these girls when it had been going on for years. He must have at least known about it since 2011 and did nothing. Nothing. So they're worried about how he will look in it, should there be an inquiry. And second, of course, such an inquiry would alienate the Muslim community. And guess what? Labour needs the Muslim vote at the next election.
Well, particularly
don't give me this stuff about Jess Phillips. This is disgusting.
Well, and it's obvious. Just join the dots. Jess Phillips got returned just into her seat with a majority of just 684 votes.
She doesn't get the Muslim vote. She's out of Parliament at the next election.
So they're trying to protect her.
That's why, in my view, in my opinion, and I think you might agree with me, that is why she is blocking an inquiry for her own political purposes, because she wants to get voted back in, and so does Labour. Lovely, isn't it?
Because otherwise, Kev, I mean, honestly, what have the Labour Party got to lose by having an inquiry? They've got everything to gain, as in being seen to support the victims, try and get to justice. And the other thing that, you know, we've talked about on Talk, but is never talked about on the other media channels, it seems, is what about those that have turned a blind eye? What about those that have enabled, those that are complicit? They should be hunted down with evidence, charged, prosecuted and imprisoned. You know, that's the point of the inquiry. It's not just for justice for the victims. People should be in prison over this. Not one person has been prosecuted for standing idly by.
And I know Maggie Oliver, and a great woman she is too, a very strong woman. She believes, and so do many other people. Don't you take it on board that this is all over. This is still going on.
Yeah.
The grooming gangs are still in operation, and we need more than an inquiry, as you say. We need the cops out there to start arresting people seriously. I think the same syndrome still prevails. It's a bunch of middle-class white people wringing their hands. They're terrified of being accused of being racist or Islamophobic should they pursue the Rochdale grooming gangs or the northern grooming gangs, all of whom are Pakistani men. All these things they don't like to talk about. But you know, Yvette Cooper today saying, these crimes have not been taken seriously for too long. Yeah, not been taken seriously by Keir Starmer, among other people. Children have been failed. Yeah, they have. So what about an inquiry to find out why? As I say, Russell, I get so sick of all these inquiries. Too many, too expensive. Often they're just a method to kick the can down the road. But by the way, the COVID inquiry costs £300,000 every single bloody day. So I rest my case. But I do feel that this is one instance where the nation is owed a public inquiry, and far more importantly, these poor victims, more than 1,400 young girls, drugged, raped, abused, sexually assaulted, treated like dogs by these awful grooming gangs. They deserve a public inquiry, and if Labour don't give it to us, to hell with them.
And do you know what should happen, Kevin? There should be a motion in Parliament, a private member's, early day motion or whatever, whereby a vote is called of all 650 members of the House of Commons. And if any MP wants to put their hand up, or rather not put their hand up for an inquiry, well, let them be damned as a consequence when that happens and it's public, particularly those Labour MPs that inevitably will vote not to have an inquiry.
The trouble is that the Labour rules the House, so it's unlikely to happen, but I agree with you. Next up, to do with all this, the Home Office, despite all of this, despite all of the problems we've got with migrants, many of these Pakistani grooming gangs were migrants, people who are asylum seekers. Despite all of this, the Home Office continues to refuse to publish the data from grooming gang deportations, how many people they've deported. That will be because they haven't deported anyone, I doubt.
Zero,
so we'll talk about that next. Stay where you are.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hey, welcome back. Right, let's... well, I tell you, we're going to talk about the fact the Home Office... Lots of things the Home Office won't tell us. What a lot of us have been calling for a long time is that we get supplied with the data, the statistics for what foreigners commit what kind of crimes. So we know that 10% of our 80,000 or so prisoners in this country, 10% are foreigners. Many of them asylum seekers, many of them migrants, but they're foreigners. So that's a disproportionate amount. So what we would like to know is what crimes are they committing? What sort of crimes are they committing? Because often a pattern will emerge, but the Home Office won't give us that. Probably because we'd find out that there was sex crimes, drug crimes, that kind of thing. Now, Russell, they won't publish the data for the number of people they have deported who were members of grooming gangs. I would suggest that's because they've probably deported hardly anyone.
Well, if anyone at all. And of course, that's assuming that the grooming gangs, although they, are said and are demographically, statistically to be predominantly Pakistani men, that could be that they're second generation as such. They could have been born here to Pakistani families. So obviously they can't be deported on that basis. But I think what this now makes us focus on, which again we've been talking about on Talk for the last few weeks, is what the propensity is of those that come to this country to commit crime over and above the natural population. Yeah. Now, we've seen what's happened. I mean, you were away, but you presumably would have caught what happened recently in Sweden. Sweden has spent the last 10 or 11 years with doors wide open, all refugees welcome, and as a consequence, their crime rate has gone absolutely through the roof. Arson, assaults, sexual offences, bombings, and so on. So they've now closed the doors because they've realised that their Merkel-type policy was not the right thing to do. They, as a consequence, realise that those that go to their country, particularly those illegal immigrants, those so-called asylum seekers, have a higher propensity to commit crime. Denmark has discovered the same thing because they do actually look at the statistics with regard to who commits crime. In Paris, it's said that some 70% of people recently that have been convicted of rape were not born in France. So there is a pattern emerging here, but of course that the establishment, the elites, don't want to talk about on any level, not just when it's rape gangs, but crime from immigrants generally.
Well, while the government is determined to keep us in the dark about these awkward statistics, the fact that they don't deport grooming gang members, the fact that people go to prison for sex and drug offences, violent offences, we don't even deport them after that. So the Home Office and the government don't like talking about this because they've made a real pig's ear of it and it's embarrassing for them. So they won't give us the statistics, but our thanks to the Centre for Migration Control, which has come up with its own analysis, its own statistics, and it has revealed that foreign nationals, drum roll, are 3 times more likely to be arrested for sexual offences as British citizens. So what we've got here is a pattern that migrants, asylum seekers, foreigners are 3 times more likely to commit sexual offences than British citizens. That's special, isn't it?
Well, and there's also a pecking order, of course. I think Albania is top of the hit parade when it comes to their propensity to commit crime generally. But also, quickly, if I may, just going back to this grooming gang statistic, reported in the Telegraph today, a convicted Rochdale grooming gang ringleader was still living in the city where he abused children 9 years after his deportation was ordered. Kwari Abdul Rauf was one of 9 Asian men convicted of sex offences against vulnerable girls in 2012. He was sentenced to 6 years in jail. Guess how long he did? 2 years, and is still here, despite there being a deportation order hanging over his hideous head.
Yeah, we had at least 2 cases towards the end of last year of paedophiles who went to jail for paedophile offences, who were then allowed to stay by the European Court of Human Rights, but because they had a right to a family life, because they had a couple of kids, a wife and a couple of kids. Paedophiles go to jail, 2 years, come out, you can stay. because you've got a right to a family life. I say, yeah, by all means you've got a right to a family life in your own country, in another country, not in Britain. This is ridiculous. There are, I think, 16.1% of the... there are 9% of our population, of the whole of Britain, are foreign nationals. They account for 16.1% of the total number of arrests. So we're letting all these foreigners in. I'm not making any comment about that. Just it's a fact. You know, we let more than 1 million in legally. We let sort of 50, 60,000 in illegally across the channel. I'm not making any comment about that. I'm just saying all these foreigners we're letting in, they are committing a disproportionate amount of crimes. 9% of foreigners commit 16% of our crimes. And they're 3.5 times, foreigners, 3.5 times more likely to commit sexual offences.
I was going to say that's particularly true when it's sexual offences.
We should be looking at these statistics. We should be taking this seriously.
I mean, you know, you've got the likes of Rupert Lowe and others that obviously have campaigned to have these numbers released. The government, of course, have been hesitant. How on earth can we tackle a problem if we won't allow ourselves, or the government won't allow us, to look at whether there is a problem? Now, we know clearly that there is. How do we tackle it one way or the other? I mean, and let's again, Kev, should we just tell it how it is? There are certain cultures that treat women differently in their cultures to the way that we treat them as a, let's call it an indigenous British population. That might sound right-wing, far-right, whatever you want to call it, I don't care, but it is simply true. Different cultures treat women in different ways. So if you are just plonked here in the middle of Aylesbury, having got off a dinghy yesterday, is it any wonder that because we haven't looked at this from a statistics point of view, therefore we haven't tackled the problems, is it any wonder that we've got certain types of demographic wandering around our town centres, treating women in an abhorrent way, because that might be acceptable in the countries from which they come?
Indeed. Now, we should go to break now. When we come back, we'll have a brief chat about Justin Trudeau, you know, the bank account closer, that fascist from Canada whose wokery is finally done for him. He's resigned today. Everybody in Canada hates him. And the real reason he's had to go is because a stupid left-wing woke idiot that he is. He was going to go to war with Donald Trump over the tariffs. And the finance minister there, his deputy, said, no, this is insane. She resigned, leaving Trudeau high and dry, and basically Canada's had enough of this ludicrous left-wing wokery, and they chucked him out, so he's had to quit. So happy days for Canadians, not so happy for us because we're still stuck with two-tier free gear. Great, isn't it? We'll talk a little bit about that next, but also the fact you're like this, Russell, if you go to hospital, I don't know, for A&E or you need treatment, you know, if you go to A&E, British citizens wait an average of 12 to 15 hours. Isn't that special? Disgraceful. Migrants, 15 minutes.
Yep.
Special priority system for asylum seekers. That, folks, is true. That is true. So stay tuned for the appalling details.
am grateful for anything that brings this back onto a national public platform, because it is such a monumental failure of decades in this country. So anything that draws us back into these issues, for me, is worthwhile. I think what we have to be careful of, though, Julia, is that we don't deflect from the central issues of this, which is children being raped and being failed by the authorities.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We'll discuss the way to short-circuit NHS waiting lists in just a second. By the way, the method you use is be a migrant or an asylum seeker. Then you get seen within 15 minutes. If you're a British citizen, 15 hours if you're lucky. Treatment even longer. Special fast-track priority system for asylum seekers and migrants at the NHS. Special, isn't it? Really good. Unbelievable. Before we get to that horror, Russell...
Let's talk about horror of a different
let's
kind.
just quickly talk about Justin and that other horror, Justin Trudeau. Canada's golden boy has finally been found out. Too woke, too left-wing. The people have had enough. As America swings right, so is Canada. Countries all over the world are swinging right. And the final showdown, which led to his downfall, to Trudeau's downfall, was that his finance minister, effectively his deputy, his chancellor, as it were, Chrystia Freeland, quit in December over a policy clash. And that's because this naive idiot wanted to go to war with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is fixing to put a big tariff on Canadian goods coming into America because he says Trudeau hasn't done enough to stop migrants getting in, which is true. He hasn't done anything. So Trudeau says, I'm going to go to war with him. And Chrystia Freeland said, this is the real world. Don't be ridiculous.
Don't be an idiot.
We can't go to war with Trump. So she quit. And ever since then, he's been skating on thin ice. Now he's gone. And all of those Canadians whose bank accounts he froze fascistically during the COVID crisis will be thrilled.
Well, he was a fascist during COVID, wasn't he? I mean, he really showed his true colours. I mean, he's supposed to be leader of the Liberal Party. There's nothing liberal about Justin Trudeau. Yes, freezing truckers' bank accounts, overseeing mass immigration, popular and recurrent theme there, isn't there? Setting troops on protesters. I mean, he did that as well. And again, something that will be familiar to people in this country now, crippling carbon taxes. That's Justin Trudeau. He's been propped up, apparently, by the NDP party for years and years and years, because he doesn't hold an outright majority. But the leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, apparently made clear last month that he was going to vote to bring him down. He also thinks it's about time he goes. And so, yes, good riddance to old rubbish, Kev.
Yeah, my favourite moment in his dubious, nefarious times was when he announced the breakup of his 18-year marriage to his wife Sophie, and stood like at this kind of press conference thing. He's got a great big bandage on his head.
Oops.
So, a bit of a punch-up, did you? No, I fell over. Yeah, right. Yeah, so, sure you
Kev,
did.
Are they
of course you did, Justy.
So the only left-wing leader in the world, really now, apart from the likes of Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin, is going to be Keir Starmer, because all the lefties are going.
Yeah, but you see, what Trudeau did during the COVID crisis proves what these socialists are. You strip away their, left-wing, be kind. No. They just want to be the leader. They want to be authoritarian. They're tyrants. Keir Starmer is a tyrant. He's a tyrant who thinks, by the way, get on the phone, let me know what you think about this. I think there should be a public inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. By the way, who is it? Somebody has quite rightly... this is... Mark in Liverpool says, stop calling them grooming gangs. They're raping gangs. Yeah. Fair enough, Mark, that's a good point, but we'll go with a normal name at this point. But I absolutely take your point. I mean, you take away these lefties, these socialists. They're just fascists in disguise. They're tyrants. They want to boss you around. Simple as that. Anyway, let's quickly, I've only got a few minutes now, this scheme that I spotted, which means that migrants and asylum seekers get priority treatment at NHS hospitals, particularly in London, the University College London hospitals. Basically, it's a scheme called the 987 Inclusion Health Scheme, and that means that if there's an urgent assessment needed, appointments in A&E and indeed treatment can be seen almost immediately. Jump all the queues, and migrants and asylum seekers, even failed asylum seekers, come under those auspices. So you and me, we go to A&E 12 to 15 hours. Asylum seekers go to A&E 15 minutes.
And what possible...
Yeah, come on, it's our country, not theirs.
But what possible, kind of institutional justification can there be for this? I mean, how on earth can anybody stand at a lectern as a politician or as a civil servant and explain to any of us why this is right, fair or proper? The people that come here, even if they come here illegally, jump the queue, when those of us that have paid into the system can't get through to our doctors, can't get an appointment for weeks, sit in A&E for hours and hours and hours, or end up on a waiting list, which is sometimes for certain operations 2 to 3 years long. We joked in the break, Kev, but maybe it's not so much of a joke, that the way around this is to jump on the Eurostar or a ferry to Calais, jump in a dinghy, come back across the channel. You'd actually be seen quicker as an asylum seeker than if you'd just gone straight to A&E and waited on a chair.
What, 8 hours or something?
Yeah, be quicker.
There you go, folks. This show aims to help with practical advice. If you need to be seen in A&E, go to Calais, get in a small boat, come back. You'll be in Dover General Hospital within seconds.
Quicker.
Perfect. Very good. Very good.
You shouldn't laugh,
I'm only joking. Don't actually try that. But it does highlight... I mean, why are they being prioritised over British citizens?
Well, because, Kev, they're prioritised for everything. They're prioritised for housing, hotels. They're prioritised, when it comes to education, money, benefits. All asylum seekers, even if their asylum application's been refused, receive an allowance. The other thing, which I still find absolutely incredible, is that, and still advertised on the Home Office website, if you come across with your wife or girlfriend that's pregnant, now I know a lot of women and kids don't come over, it's generally 20 to 30-year-old, what we call fighting age men, as part of this kind of daily invasion, but if you do happen to come over with your wife or girlfriend and she's pregnant, you get a £300 cash advance. That's what it says on the Home Office website right now.
It's just ridiculous. Where are our deterrents? That, by the way, over Christmas I noticed that the migrant Christmas present to this country was hundreds of them coming over. About
800 one day.
About over 1,000 in 2-3 days over Christmas. Yeah. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. This government's doing nothing to stop them. Smashing the gangs won't make any difference. Even if you did smash the gangs, there'll be new gangs tomorrow. You've got to stop the migrants. And by the way, just as an addendum to that, they haven't stopped any gangs. They haven't caught anyone. They spent about £175 million. Honestly, the ineptitude, the incompetence of this hopeless, nasty, useless government just knows no bounds. It's absolutely staggering. When we come back talking about uselessness, we're going to be talking to Mike Neville, our friend from the Met Police, about policing, how bad it has been over 24, what we need to do in 25 to improve it, and also the fact that more and more pedos are getting pretty much let off for their vile child sex offences. Big thanks to Russell Quirk. He'll be back next week. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and you are tuned to the Political Asylum. Stay right where you are.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is the second hour of my first political asylum of 2025. And in this hour, get on the phone. Let me know what you think about the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, that excuse for a Prime Minister, saying that if you feel, as I do, that there should be a public inquiry into the grooming gang scandal, you're right-wing, you're far-right, you're a far-right extremist. He thinks you're a political nutter if you think that we need a public inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. So why is that right-wing? And don't you feel insulted that he's decided that if you feel that... I mean, it seems to be natural. Don't you think there should be an inquiry into this? As I said earlier, I do get a bit fed up with this never-ending production line of inquiries, public inquiries. They cost too much, and mostly they're just a way of political kicking the can down the road so that politicians can avoid questions on awkward subjects like the COVID crisis that they so badly mishandled. But in this instance, this is about victims. This is about more than 1,400. They think maybe more than 1,400 kids in Rochdale alone were abused, sexually abused by Pakistani predatory grooming gangs. 1,400 in one town. Now, that's an estimation, but if that's true, I mean, we owe those victims, we owe every single one of those victims an inquiry. We need to get to the bottom of this dreadful miscarriage of justice and to find out why it was that the police, social workers, the authorities, the government, politicians and the Director of Public Prosecutions did nothing to protect these poor girls. Nothing. Nothing. We need a public inquiry for that, don't you think? Now, if you do think that, then Keir Starmer thinks you're Adolf Hitler, thinks you're a right-wing nutter, you're a far-right extremist. What a disgusting thing to say. Why would he think that? What if you believe there's a need for a public inquiry, and I think any right-thinking person must believe that, why does that make you far-right? Honestly, this man, this little man, is becoming an embarrassment. How dare he say that? Let me know what you think. 03444991000. Now, let's talk about the police, shall we? Well, first of all, we're going to talk about what went wrong with policing in 2024. Or shall I rephrase that? What went right? It'll only take 30 seconds. Seriously, what went wrong for policing in 2024? What do we need to do in 2025 to improve a dire situation? But before that, I think we need to talk about the leniency, the increasing leniency with which we treat paedophiles, convicted paedophiles, child sex abusers. Hardly any of them are going to prison like Hugh Edwards, remember that? So let's talk about that first. We're going to spend half an hour in the company now of excellent former Met Police Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville. Hello, Mike.
Happy New Year, Kevin.
Happy New Year to you as well.
Can you imagine if 1,400 Muslim girls had been raped and abused by a Jewish or Christian group? That I'm sure Keir Starmer would be clamouring for an inquiry into that. Shocking.
Yeah. Actually, while we're on, I don't want to dwell on this, but can you, for the life of you, because I can't work this out, work out why it is that Keir Starmer feels that if you believe there should be a public inquiry into the grooming gang scandal, you're far right? Why does he think that?
I can understand it, because you have a man here who's obsessed, who lives in a bubble of left-wing and diversity and the like, and anything. If somebody, there's a whole set of like what you might call victim cards. So if you're a follower of Islam, you are automatically a victim. If you're black, you are a victim. If you're a straight white man, you are an offender. This is how they measure up people. And so when things come along that don't fit that agenda, it's almost like the Daleks when they could not compute. You know, they cannot understand it. And all they can do is throw out this insult that you want this because you're far right. And what they know is that so many Labour councils in particular, and the Tories are to blame for this, of letting it go on, are to blame, though, at every level, and the police, because like the Tower Hamlets voting scandal, people were more concerned with their next rank than getting a finger being pointed racist. Because we know in this country that for many, many years, and hopefully this is going away, the moment that finger pointed and you're accused of being racist, it is like being called a witch 300 years ago. The more you say, the more guilty you are. And this is all the establishment are in that pattern. And they were prepared to see girls abused rather than the racist accusation being made. We live in a country where racism is allegedly a more serious crime than child rape. That's how crazy it is.
Absolutely disgraceful. And we now know Keir Starmer's definition of far right. What makes you far right? You're far right if you do anything that he doesn't like. If you oppose what he feels, if you oppose his policies and you actually do something he doesn't like call for a very necessary public inquiry, he says you're far right. Self-obsessed little weasel. Self-obsessed little weasel. This is a little bit more important than politics. This is about those victims. It is about justice for those victims, and this excuse for a man, Keir Starmer, and his little sidekick, St. Jess Phillips, are playing politics with it, and that, I think, is disgusting, absolutely disgusting. But let's move on. I think this is disgusting as well. We're getting more and more lenient. This emerges today, Mike, with paedophiles. The number of paedophiles jailed for hoarding child abuse images is falling and hit its lowest ever rate last year. Only 17% of the 3,220 people convicted of paedophile offences were jailed. Now, in 2010, we sent nearly 35% of all pedos went to jail. That was 2010. 2024, we're down to 17%. We're letting more and more go, as we saw with Hugh Edwards. They either get one of these community orders, which means you go and paint some old lady's garden fence, or, worse still, you get suspended sentences. Now, lest anyone is in any doubt, suspended sentences is code for we hereby let you off. You get sentenced to 2 years jail, suspended, and you just walk out, and as long as you don't get any more trouble, that's it. So something like, what is that? We've got 83% of paedophiles were let off last year. That's a disgrace, isn't it?
It's an absolutely disgrace, Kevin, because what you've got to imagine is that every single one of those pictures these men are looking at and hoarding, every single picture involves a child being hurt, abused, who's left with a lifetime of misery because of that sex abuse. You know, and it's an absolute scandal. And what we have here is almost like, sometimes you get this classism, really, where you get the Hugh Edwardses of this world, where they're part of the establishment, they're middle class, and they don't go to jail. You know, if Hugh Edwards might have put up a few hurty words on his Facebook site after seeing all these thousands of disgusting images, then he might go to jail, because people can't help but see, can they, all the time, that, you know, after Southport, people put some vile and stupid things up on Facebook, but didn't really hurt anybody, and they're given 2 or 3 years in the slammer, whereas somebody like Hugh Edwards is allowing his actions come from a child being sexually abused in the most wicked way. And I can honestly say, Kevin, I was in the police, I saw lots of bad things, murder, death, all sorts of horrible things, which you can sort of brush off and have a pint and move on from. I thought I was a tough guy once, and I stayed in a presentation where they presented about child abuse. I wish I'd never, ever been in that room. So that is, the things you can't unsee, and it's just wicked. evil, and it needs to be dealt with. And the way to deal with it is to lock people up, because they understand that they're doing something wrong. Because, as you say, suspended sentences mean nothing, and they're often not even taken into consideration when they get caught again. And then they're put in, if they do get put in prison, it's for a minimal amount of time. It needs to be gripped, because these are children who are being abused, and it isn't good enough.
Absolutely. And I would suggest, Mike, that no ifs, no buts. You know, stop all this wishy-washy stuff. You get done for paedophile offence, any paedophile offence, you go to jail. That's called a deterrent. At the moment, the vast majority of paedophiles, many of whom hoard these pictures, thousands and thousands and thousands of these vile pictures of children being raped, being sexually abused, babies, 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds. They have all these pictures. And they basically go to court and they get let off scot-free. Some of them don't even get fined. They just get one of these mythical suspended sentences, which basically means you got a suspended sentence. Yeah, thanks very much, Judge. I'm off down the pub. I'm free now. So the message to these people is, you can do this. We won't come down hard on you. We need to change that message and say, you get caught with one picture, never mind thousands, one, you go into prison. I bet you that would reduce this activity.
I absolutely agree with you. But the trouble is, whether we have a Labour government or a Conservative government, we have a very left-leaning establishment who seem to think that these things are acceptable. If you look back into the 70s, there was all sorts of attempts to sort of justify paedophile behaviour. It's absolutely disgusting. And as I say, a lot of the people involved are part of the establishment, like Hugh Edwards. And so there seems to be just let them off. Whereas if you're a sort of a lad with a bald head from a council estate who says some bad things on Facebook, you're going to prison. And people can see this. And it is really perverting how people see justice in this country and just feel that the courts, the police, are not on the side of the person who follows the law and does the right thing. It just seems to be really bad at the moment for that.
I think this country has a worrying attitude to paedophilia, to paedophiles, paedophile crime, paedophilia generally. Look at the BBC. It seems to be a haven. You know, if you want to be a pedo, get a job at the BBC. They'll look after you as much as they can.
And you can't be cured, Kevin. I don't believe you can be cured.
Of course you can't. I agree with that.
The thing is, when you put somebody in prison, particularly those who've abused children physically, if you put a burglar or a robber in prison, you take a chance, you let them out, they may do something again. And if they do, that's a bad thing. But when you let a paedophile out of prison, you're taking a chance on a child's life. So we don't take that chance. Just keep them there. Lock them up, chemically castrate them, do something to them, because they just bring utter misery and ruin lives forever. And we can't carry on like that.
Yeah, every one of those pictures is the abuse of some poor kid. Every single one of them. And we've got to get tougher on this. This is all wrong. It really is. As I say, I just do think this country needs to recalibrate its attitude to the most dangerous people in our society, and they're called paedophiles. They're people who would do harm to children. They're people who would sexually abuse children. They're people who would rape children. And if we as a nation can't find it in our hearts to come down hard on these people, then we've got to have a serious look at ourselves. This is wrong. Edwards should have gone to jail. He really should have gone to jail. Send a message.
Absolutely.
So definitely we need to do something about this. Listen, Mike, when we come back, let's talk about policing generally. Let's talk about what went wrong in 2024 and what we could maybe do to try to improve things in 2025. Just as a bit of a spoiler, I'd say sack every single chief constable, get new ones in who care more about catching bad guys than bloody community relations. We'll talk about that after these messages, Mike. See you in a minute.
basically saying what he thinks and saying it was unfiltered. He said it about his own car in terms of Tesla before, when the stock prices drastically dropped. He said negative things about his own company, his own people, multiple times. He did it once on a Joe Rogan podcast. So it's quite Elon Musk-like behaviour in terms of just speaking his thoughts. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think Reform obviously needs to just stay strong as a political party and almost be like, thank you, you're doing amazing work, but we are going to govern how we decide to govern.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still talking to former Met Police Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville. Well, we've covered the leniency, the worrying leniency with which we increasingly treat paedophiles. Isn't it time? Let me know what you think, folks. Give me a call. Isn't it time we just said to every paedophile, right, you're nicked, you've been convicted, that means you're a paedophile. You're going to jail. You're not walking down the street and nipping into Pret-a-Manger on your way to the pub after this case. You're on your way to Wormwood Scrubs. If we told them that, then I guarantee you this soaring paedophilia problem that we've got in this country would dissipate. So what do you think? Is it time to send all paedophiles to prison? 0344 499 1000. Let me know what you think. Let's go back to Mike now. Mike, let's talk about policing generally. 2024 was as disastrous as most years. The rate of crime solving is frankly risible. I mean, it's almost comedic. It's ridiculous. They're not so. What was it? What was it? Came out just after Christmas. Was it that they're not solving something like 6 crimes a minute or something? It's getting ridiculous. Why can't we have chief constables of police forces who see it as their priority to solve crimes, proper crimes, to get the statistics in? Instead, they don't seem too worried about that. They don't seem to worry about solving crimes. They've abandoned even bothering to investigate things like car theft, burglary, bicycle thefts, violent attacks. They don't even bother with all of that. And they spend a lot of time, as they say, patrolling the tweets and not the streets. They've got officers going through social media all the time, wasting taxpayers' money, calling on Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson to say she might have tweeted something a little bit dodgy a year ago. This kind of wokery, this nonsensical left-wing approach to policing has got to stop. Why do not chief constables of our various constabularies realise that what we want them to do, what we want coppers to do, is to get out there and catch the bad guys?
I absolutely agree. And this is what these police and crime commissioners who we vote in are supposed to emphasise and say what the public want, but they don't seem to do that. And what you have with senior officers, they're all about my age, you see, and I remember when the Macpherson report came out, there were certain ambitious people who were chief inspectors and superintendents at the time, couldn't wait to show how racist they were and self-flagrate and things like that. And these ambitious people have all got to the top. And they're obsessed with the wokery, they're obsessed with the diversity, every form of diversity apart from diversity of thought. So, for example, the Metropolitan Police, at the last inspection by Her Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary, the people who go and check police forces, of 8 categories, one of which is catching criminals, solving crime, out of 8 categories, they were inadequate in 7 of them. Now, the response to this, Mark Rowell is one of the responses to this, is to have a diversity directorate and a race action plan. But the trouble is, Kevin, when they sit round a big table, the senior officers, and they say, look, we've been found inadequate, 7 out of 8 things, hopeless at solving crime. We've got this race action plan. There's no one who puts their hands up and says, you know, should we stop doing this? They all think the same. They all think in the same way. And this is a big, big problem because we now have a Labour government who all the ministers think the same. So anybody who says, oh, excuse me, there shouldn't be another one of these race action plans, let's just get on with catching the bad guys, whether they're black, white, brown or green, will just be condemned as a far-right thug now.
Well, exactly. I mean, why is it, though? I mean, why are they so obsessed with, you know, wokery, with, you know, race action groups and not bothered about, like, actually going out there and catching criminals, catching the bad guys and women, regardless of colour, creed or race? Why?
Because this is everywhere. You only have to look at it. It's everywhere across the establishment. It's not just the police, possibly the armed forces. Then you have like the passport office. Often the passport office or the driving licence, whoever issues the driving licences or does any government function, a lot of the focus will be on diversity, not on issuing passports or driving licences or doing that thing that particular area of business should be doing. The prisons should really be locking up offenders and making sure that the society is safe. Yet they're so obsessed with equal opportunities. They have female officers in male prisons and vice versa. And we've seen all the woman jailed today, prison officer having sex. So it's not just the police. But can I say one of the other major problems as well was the lack of support for junior officers. Look at the scandal this year of the sergeant charged with murder, who the jury apparently took 20 minutes to find innocent because he said 2 hours in the papers, but that's because he had a lunch break as well. And now you've got an officer who's charged with careless driving, a very tragic death, so he went through a red light. But if we're going to ask human beings like me and you to shoot people to keep us safe, to drive at high speeds to inner cities, to get to an incident to help people, unfortunately, tragedies are going to happen. Just like when a surgeon operates, sometimes a tragedy happens, an artery is cut by accident. But we accept their high-risk situations. And the people involved in this, unless they've been utterly negligent, they shouldn't be in any way prosecuted. And no wonder the police have got a recruitment crisis when people see these things and they see the officers at the bottom who have to pull out a gun or drive fast or pull out a taser, and they're constantly scrutinised to the ridiculous degree. That is a real problem for policing as well.
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, to highlight, you know, the epicentre of what's wrong with British policing. It happened last year when 2 young coppers knocked on the door of my colleague, journalistic colleague, great columnist for the Daily Telegraph, Alison Pearson. It was on Memorial Sunday. It was on the Remembrance Sunday. They knocked on her door at 9:30 in the morning and started berating her about a tweet she sent a year before, which they felt could be racist. Now, the Essex police chief, the chief constable, was a guy called Ben Julian Harrington. I think he thought that this was good for his career. I think this sort of nonsense is what people like Ben Julian Harrington think is progressive policing, the sort of policing that will get him promoted again, and so on and so forth. He actually found out that he shouldn't have stepped there, he shouldn't have gone there. There are areas that are too sensitive, and the people of this country were disgusted by what happened, and they had to drop all investigations and all inquiries. That's quite encouraging, but getting that message through to the Ben Julian Harringtons of this world, these woke chief constables, I think is going to be a very hard process, because they genuinely believe in all this. They want to list non-crime hate incidents. They like doing that, monitoring the people illegally. I don't think they should be doing that, but they like doing it, don't they?
I do. And I'll just give you some examples of that me personally, you know, I have an expertise of catching people with images, and I offered my services to Essex Police and other police forces. You say, Look, you could catch a lot more of these criminals. A lot of people have domestic CCTV and ring doorbells. All the shops have CCTV. They're catching all these images of criminals. But what you have is you have 5% of burglars are ever caught, 1% of thieves. And they just don't, we say, oh, we don't need that. You think, well, why don't you need it? Because this is a way that you would catch prolific criminals doing bad things. But the focus has been taken away from robbery and burglary, rape and the like. I mean, stranger rape. I did a Freedom of Information Act request into that. Only 6% of stranger rapes. Now, when a rapist is known to the victim or the complainant, it's very difficult often to solve the crime, because one says, oh, she said yes. The victim says, I said no. And you've got the wisdom of Solomon to try and who is telling the truth here, whether there's DNA or not. With stranger rapes, there's DNA, you can see the awful injuries on the victim, there's fingerprints, CCTV. How can the police only be solving 6% of stranger rapes? So the focus has been taken away from all this. And while those two officers were speaking to Alison Pearson, of course, they weren't arresting car thieves, the people robbing the local shop or burgling somebody's house. It's an absolute scandal, the level of crime. They got put in special measures, and one police officer said, oh, we were taken out of special measures. It's almost like it's a victory. It's like coming 17th in the Premier League. You've just avoided relegation, mate. You really need to buck up your efforts. But they think that coming out of that is good enough, and it's not good enough. The police should be making the streets and our homes safer rather than focusing on nonsense.
Absolutely. I know all about coming 17th in the Premiership. I'm a Fulham fan, you know. We consider 17th to be a triumph. But one last point, Mike, because I think the other major policing story of last year was just how long it took to bring charges against those guys who were filmed knocking 7 bells out of 3 police officers at Manchester Airport.
Two-tier policing. Two-tier policing.
Yeah, I was going to say that on July the 23rd. August the 15th, to be fair to Manchester Police, they passed their file to the Crown Prosecution Service, and then it took till just before Christmas, so the best part of 6 months before they finally got round to bringing charges against those guys, and their trial happens later this year. Why did it take so long?
Because those guys were Pakistani Muslims. Because if it had been 2 white thugs who'd come from a Millwall football match after a few beers, they'd have been swiftly dealt with. I think the fact that the officer kicked one of them in the head didn't really help the matters in a way with the charging. But the facts are that the evidence was absolutely clear as anything you can see in front of your eyes. As I say, my expertise is CCTV. How much CCTV and body-worn video could you have? And it's not just the police, as I say, it's the CPS. And we saw it time and time again. People only had to see the reaction to the riots where there was Muslims and Romanians involved in the riots in Leeds, and the police just simply let them get on with it.
And Birmingham, mate. Birmingham.
And then we saw Southport as well, and people are just sitting back, and you only, as we said at the very start, that you're seeing Hugh Edwards getting a suspended sentence, and then you're seeing some woman who's got no previous convictions, writing, I'm going to burn down a mosque. She's got no ability to burn down a mosque. She's got no real intention to burn down a mosque. She's done something stupid where she should get a caution. But this is what people see. So if you do something that the establishment disagrees with, or you're in a category where you're not in that victim class that I said at the start, then you will go to jail. And if you have these victim cards to play, you won't. And this really does put in people's minds that justice is not blind, justice is not fair, and justice isn't on their side. And that's a really bad situation for any society to be in.
Absolutely. I think we need to get rid of 2-tier policing. We need to get rid of these chief constables who are obsessed with community relations and dancing the Macarena, and replace them with chief constables who want to solve crimes, make the streets safer, and, as I say, stop treating sections of of our community, particularly Muslims, with priority treatment, special treatment. As you quite rightly say, Mike, if that punch-up at Manchester Airport on July the 23rd had been with 3 serving police officers, who, by the way, were badly injured, one woman, the police officer woman had her nose broken, blood all over the place. They all had to go to hospital. If that punch-up had been between those 3 coppers and 3 or 4 Millwall fans, those Millwall fans would be in jail, as of about 5 months ago,
Absolutely.
I suggest. So,
Kevin, I say every time, if anybody doesn't believe there's 2-tier policing, go to Notting Hill Carnival, enjoy smoking cannabis openly, enjoy the fact that you can dance with female officers to the point of sexual assault, enjoy the fact you can abuse the police and do as you wish, jump on bus shelters, collapse it on top of people. If you don't believe there's 2-tier policing, go and do that, and then go to Millwall Football Club on Saturday and do exactly those things and see the difference in the type of policing that you face. There's an experiment I challenge any left-wing professor, expert who tells us there's not 2-tier policing. I shall come and film it as well, so we can all enjoy the fruits of that research.
That's a date, Mike. Mike, really good to talk to you, as always. We'll see you again very soon. The brilliant former Met Police Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville there. What do you think? We've got to stop 2-tier policing. If you're a Muslim, you get away with all sorts of things that other people don't. That's got to be wrong. 03444991000. Get out there, catch the bad guys, catch crooks, catch bike thieves, catch car thieves, catch burglars. I don't give a damn about community relations. Good community relations, keep the streets safe for people. That will be good community relations. Never mind about all your meetings and your dancing and all that. Let's get back to proper policing of this country, eh? 03444991000. Going to cross the pond after these messages. We're going to talk about the Blake Lively story, which is getting more complex by the minute. So stay tuned for that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, over the pond in Hollywood, my old hometown, it's all been happening. There's been a big bust-up over a movie called It Ends With Us, starring the director and actor Justin Baldoni and his co-star, the actress Blake Lively. Blake Lively has launched some serious legal action with harassment complaints against him. Saying that, she was sexually harassed and mistreated on the set of this film, presided over by Baldoni. He has countersued an 87-page lawsuit suing the New York Times for running the story of what Blake Lively claims happened to her. Basically, it's getting more and more heated by the day. It is a story that has Hollywood on the edge of its seat. Let's talk to get a kind of perspective on this and the kind of case that it is. Let's talk to media lawyer Mark Stevens. Welcome, Mark.
Welcome. Lovely to be with you, Kevin, and grab your popcorn, I'd say.
I think you're right. Now, this, of course, started a month or so ago where Blake Lively launched this action, basically saying that she was mistreated, she was sexually abused, that she alleges that Baldoni, brought his mates in for some of the more intimate scenes to watch, and that they went into her trailer while she didn't have much on, and so on and so forth. So there's no love lost between these two. Now, Justin Baldoni has responded by actually suing the New York Times for running the story of what Blake Lively alleges, which he says is not true. It's an 87-page lawsuit. What do you think is going on here? I mean, he clearly feels he has been wronged and that she's not telling the truth, but surely she wouldn't launch this action unless something happened to her. It's a perplexing situation.
It certainly is. And, of course, we don't know the ins and outs of it, but I have spent some time looking at the papers and trying to understand it. And what happens is that in employment law in most countries of the world, most civilized countries, we have a public interest disclosure. That means that if you're being sexually or physically or bullied or harassed at work, you can make that disclosure, as Blake Lively did, to the Californian authorities. And it was that report of those things that then appears in the New York Times. And it goes with some additional material, which is that in response to that claim, as yet unadjudicated by Blake Lively, it is suggested that Wayfarer, the producers of the film, James Heath, and Justin Baldoni, essentially tried to wreak a revenge on her through PR. And as a consequence of that, that's one of the things you can't do. Normally in America, as you know, free speech is all. But one of the areas you can't go into is you can't essentially get revenge for someone reporting you to the authorities for an adjudication as to whether you've done wrong. And so what's happened is that Justice Baldoni has sued the New York Times. Well, I don't expect that case to be around very long. Essentially, it's a fair report of the legal proceedings in California of Blake Lively reporting it to the authorities. So I think that case is going to get dismissed very quickly. The more interesting case is the case that Blake Lively then brought about retribution. So she sues a second time, if you like, the Wayfarer and James Heath and Justin Baldoni in New York for revenge, and essentially saying that's not allowed. Now, that's a real problem, because if there's any substance in the allegations that Blake Lively made, that namely that he bought in, or they bought in, PR people to traduce her reputation, to do her down, essentially to get their retribution in first, then we're going to see disclosure of all of that. We're going to see all of the communications with the PR person coming out, and of course their subcontractors, who some people may have noticed that there was quite a lot of social media activity towards the end of last year and the beginning of this. And so a lot of the allegations are that that was inauthentic in the sense that it was generated and ginned up by PR people and social media manipulators. So this has got a long way to run. I think it's interesting that Baldoni's agent has already sacked him. And I think that we're going to see a lot of blood on the carpet here. But I think on the papers I'm reading, I think Baldoni's going to be on a losing ticket here. Blake Lively's already got one of the best lawyers in America, the best trial lawyers in America, a guy called Mike Gottlieb from Wilkie Farr on his team, and Brian Frieden, who's a well-known media lawyer but not a great trial lawyer, is up for Baldoni and Wayfarer and James Heath.
What do you think about the tactics? The reason that Baldoni, the interpretation of why Baldoni has sued the New York Times is this, that he needed to get something concrete in his corner to respond to Blake Lively's original allegations, because if you don't, those original allegations will kind of fester and everybody will take them to be true. So his best way of getting something going
his
quickly
PR tactic
was to sue the newspaper. And as you say,
right. The problem with that is
for hundreds of millions of dollars, I don't think he's going to see a single
million, but that's what they do in America. Nobody ever gets it. But the reality of that is that's all a good tactic if you're going to get it down to trial, if you can keep this case going. But they have some very interesting summary judgment rules in America, which means that the defendants, the New York Times, will be able to knock this out very quickly. And you know, as an experienced journalist, if you write a fair report of what's in the court case, then you're essentially immune from prosecution. The person may not like what you've said, but it's a genuine report of it, and we allow that in a free society. So I think Blake Lively could end up not only having his case thrown out, which won't look very well in the long term.
You mean Baldoni?
Paying the legal costs of the New York Times, which is unprecedented in America.
Yeah, you said Blake Lively, you meant Baldoni.
Sorry, Baldoni, yeah. Sorry.
OK, we can just quickly, to finish here, Mark, we can do that because we're not in America right now. We can prejudge the case. Which way do you think it's heading? Do you think Lively's onto a winner here?
Yeah, I think Blake Lively's going to win. I think Baldoni, Wayfarer and James Heath are going down for the third time, and they'll probably become persona non grata in Hollywood unless they settle this case up quickly.
Tell you what, we should buy up the rights to this and we'll make a Hollywood movie of it. What do you say?
Definitely. There's a sequel coming too.
Mark, great to talk to you. Thank you very much. Mark Stevens, their media lawyer. Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni. It is really kicking off. Interesting what Mark says, that Blake Lively, he thinks, will win this case. How can I put this? Blake, stories seem to follow her around. I mean, she does seem to attract headlines. She's one of those people. But Mark saying that he thinks she's got a very strong case here, and that perhaps Justin Baldoni, in suing the New York Times, is clutching at straws. So, fascinating case, a real-life courtroom drama, if you like, over there in the States. Next up, we are going to be talking about... what are we going to be talking about? Yeah, that's right, the BBC. It turns out that the Director General, they're always spending too much money, our money. Director General, Tim Davie, has spent thousands and thousands of pounds staying in a particular posh hotel in central London, staying there, for work purposes. He lives just about an hour outside of town, lives in Henley-on-Thames. You can get there on a good night within an hour, less than an hour. So why is he spending thousands of pounds to stay in a flash hotel? Why is he wasting the taxpayers or the licence fee payers' money with that? Also, the finance director apparently stayed in London hotels 65 nights because he lives in Glasgow. His job's in London, but he lives in Glasgow, so he stayed in a hotel 65 nights. We pay for that. Why? We'll talk about that next. There we are.
Us on and accuse us of being lying and fraudulent
What's
about our membership numbers.
Wasn't she asked to apologise?
We got a number of different media channels and journalists in to check the actual database, the back end, proved that we were right, she was completely wrong, and just said, look, we all make mistakes, just apologise, Kemi. She's refused to do that, so Nigel announced over the weekend that we're going to make our own constituency seat a key target at the next general election, just to give Kemi a little bit of something to think about.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is...
Welcome back. Well, let's go straight to my next guest. She is, of course, the campaigning director for Defund the BBC, Rebecca Ryan. Welcome, Rebecca. Very happy New Year to you.
Hey, Kevin.
Now, let's talk about your favourite subject, the BBC. This was a strange one. It has been revealed in accounts that Tim Davie, the Director General, last year, spent more than 30 nights and over £3,000 staying in what we think, it's unnamed, but we think it's the same expensive central London hotel, you know, presumably for work purposes. You know, he's an important man, fair enough. But he lives, you know, on a good day, less than an hour away. He lives in Henley-on-Thames. You can get there in an hour. You know, he shouldn't really be spending thousands of pounds staying in posh hotels when he lives so close. The chief financial officer of the BBC, a guy called Alan Dixon, he spent 65 nights, we think, at the same palatial inn. He lives in Glasgow, even though his job's based in London. So that might explain why so many nights in London hotels. Now, there's a reason for that. I don't think it justifies that expense, but at least he can't say, well, he lives nearby. He lives in Glasgow. But why is Director General Tim Davie charging over £3,000 staying in these hotels to effectively licence fee payers, charging them? It's our money. Why is he doing that when he lives less than an hour away?
Well, exactly. I mean, I looked at it, and he lives sort of, 12-minute drive from the end of the Elizabeth line, the new line that they've got going out onto the west in the Stockbroker belt where he is. So, it doesn't make any sense at all, other than the fact they've just got this complete view of that they can do what they like and they're not answerable. Which, if you were the CEO of a successful business, then maybe you can do that kind of thing. But at the BBC, they were bullying pensioners on Christmas Day, if you remember, sending out letters saying, we're not going to stop visits even for Christmas Day kind of thing. And how awful is that you're intimidating vulnerable people on the day of, this one day when everyone is supposed to be able to relax. And he is, like you say, unnecessarily staying over in London. When he is literally just on the end of a tube line. It makes no sense other than just sheer arrogance and a lack of, awareness of how the country views it.
I've been speculating on what hotel it is. I've got a good idea. I think it's that there's a very expensive luxury 5-star hotel just across the road from New Broadcasting House. I would speculate that it's probably there. This is typical of the BBC. Also, the eco-conscious BBC, which has of course pledged to reduce its carbon emissions, like we're all losing sleep over the BBC's carbon emissions. But it did make this big pledge. Last year, or the first half of last year, 6 months, it spent £83,000 on loads of planet-destroying internal flights. So you could get a train from, say, London to Manchester, but BBC staff prefer to fly. These people are just utter hypocrites, aren't they?
They are, absolutely. And this is what people get so frustrated with, is people are sort of preaching all of these net zero agenda that's costing people huge amounts on their energy bills on a monthly basis that they can't afford to sort of eat off heat kind of thing. And yet you've got the people who are preaching this to them who are just doing whatever they want. And that's what people are sick and tired of, is this hypocrisy that we see constantly from the BBC. And if they want to tell people how they should be living their lives, then they have to live by that themselves, surely, because, if we're in this sort of energy climate crisis, then surely they should be doing everything as well. But, we all know that this thing has been overblown, but yet it's being used as a weapon to sort of beat the British people with, in order to try and get them to buy very expensive electric vehicles and awful sort of heat pumps that don't work and as such.
The problem we've got with the BBC now is, under the Tories, we were edging toward politicians, Westminster politicians. They always have this thing, don't be nasty to the BBC because everybody loves the BBC. That's what they think in the Westminster bubble. I've got different news for them. It's not true. People don't love the BBC. They're sick to death of the damn BBC. But the Tories were beginning to edge towards recognising that and perhaps getting a bit tough on the BBC. No more of this licence fee nonsense. Maybe you can start to think about paying your own way. But of course, the problem is that Labour will let the BBC get away with anything, won't it?
Absolutely. Well, we've had Keir Starmer saying that, that the BBC's backing them and that kind of thing. So they are absolutely unashamed of their sort of connection with each other in this sort of continuation of this metropolitan liberal elite narrative that they've got going. And, they're not going to do anything. Lisa Nandy talked about democratising it, or sort of making it into like John Lewis, where everybody's got a stake in it. But I don't think anybody believes that anymore. And the only way you're going to change the BBC, and we've seen throughout the whole of last year and for the last decade, scandal after scandal at the BBC. But the only way you're going to change it is by really hitting them where it hurts, which is by just not paying your licence fee. we're always telling people that you don't have to pay for the BBC if you don't watch any live broadcast TV or BBC iPlayer. You can actually get away with not funding this organisation.
Does the BBC, I mean, they'll be boasting about Christmas at the moment, but does it actually make any programmes that anybody wants to watch, apart from Gavin and Stacey and Strictly Come Dancing? I mean, is there anything else people watch on the BBC? I can't think of anything.
Well, unfortunately, I have to pay for a licence so that I can watch what they're doing and be able to criticise what they're doing. So, but I occasionally look at iPlayer, and there isn't anything. The last decent thing the BBC made, in my view, was Killing Eve, but that was BBC America that made that, so it's a private enterprise. So no, I don't know when they last made a decent drama. But as we know, through their sort of light entertainment and their news stories and all their general programming, it's just so full of woke nonsense that people are just switching off in their droves.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, the licence fee's just gone up, right? Just gone up to what, 170 or something?
Just shy of 170.
I mean, we're not getting value for money, are we, there?
Absolutely not. And this is the thing, is how people are used to consuming content nowadays, is everybody's got a sort of subscription to Netflix or Prime or whatever, or even they can watch ITV or Channel 4, these different... on your smart TV, you can watch these for free even. So people are used to having all these different ways of watching TV programmes that doesn't require them to have a BBC licence. And actually, the thing is, the more people are getting used to the technology and watching things via sort of on demand and what have you, they're realising I really don't need to watch the BBC, and I really don't want to pay for it.
Absolutely. Rebecca, good to talk to you again. Come on again soon. That's Rebecca Ryan, Campaigning Director for Defund the BBC. It is about time we defunded the BBC, but it's not going to happen under Labour because they love the BBC. They call it public service broadcasting. What that means is boring broadcasting. That's all the BBC specialises in. Kinsey Schofield on the Royals is coming up after the news. You better stay tuned for that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just check my watch. It's 2025. Amazing. Now, I am conscious, folks, of the fact that have you spoken to any of you yet this year on this show, actually? But we will in just a short while. Around about 20 past, throwing open the lines for the rest of the show. So it's 0344 499 1000. You know what we're talking about. Mainly, I think it's a disgrace that the Prime Minister thinks that if you think there should be a public inquiry, an inquiry into the grooming gang scandal, then you're far right. You've climbed onto a far right bandwagon. Why is it right wing to want an inquiry into why those poor kids were not protected, why they were let down by the police, by the social workers, by the authorities, by the government, by the Director of Public Prosecutions? What was his name again in those days? Hang on, I'll get it in a minute. Keir Starmer, that's the guy. We need an inquiry into that, don't we? But if you do want an inquiry, according to Keir Starmer, that makes you Adolf Hitler. What do you think about that? 0344 499 1000. Let me know. Give me a call. And what do you think about the rift between Elon Musk and Nigel Farage? What is that all about? Very interested in your views on that. Is it just a disagreement over Tommy Robinson, or does it run a little deeper than that? And whatever Reform UK stand, I've got friends in Reform UK. I'm not here to bat for anybody's team, but this is not good for them. This is not good. It's good to have Elon Musk as a friend, not an enemy. And he doesn't seem to think Nigel Farage is up to the job of being the leader of Reform UK. Do you think Elon is wrong, or is he right? What do you feel about this strange dispute? 0344 499 1000. And now, drum roll, we're going over to Los Angeles to speak to my friend, the royal expert extraordinaire, Kinsey Schofield. Hello, Kins.
Kevin, I know I drove you crazy while you were on vacation, sending you play-by-plays, emotional play-by-plays about my reaction to everything that was happening with Meghan while you were on vacay.
You didn't drive me crazy, yeah? I'm that kind of person. I hate losing touch. So when I'm on holiday, on vacation, I'm always checking the news all the time. So your missives over WhatsApp were very well received, and they promoted some very serious discussions between me, my wife, and some of the other residents of our hotel over there in Barbados. So you performed a very useful service. Thank you very much. And a Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
Let's get going. I mean, this is going to be kind of old material for some people, but it's new for us. My God, did it all happen while I was away? Meghan has gone on a massive broadside. She's relaunching herself. So it started off with that ridiculous film of her running around a beach, putting 2025 in the sand. My favourite bit was Harry's great big sneaker shoe imprint on the sand next to where she was riding it. So it wasn't very professional. And then she unleashed this. This is her new cooking show. Remind me, I keep getting it. Is it With Love Meghan or Meghan with Love? What's it called?
It's With Love Meghan.
With Love Meghan. Here's the trailer.
I'm going to share some little tips and tricks. I see what color I gravitate to, and everything goes from there. And how you can incorporate these practices every day. That's what you want. You want that shape and texture. Come on. This is about connecting with friends. I love that we're doing this together for the first time. Making new friends. That is so good.
We're family now.
And just learning. Look at how much honey we have.
Do you believe in that?
Do you believe in tragic, more like? What do you reckon on this, Kinsey? I'll tell you what I think as an experienced television critic. I don't think this show stands a chance. I mean, what's it about? Why on earth do I want to know about, Meghan baking cakes for her mates in California? What's her qualifications for this? We'll put up with it for Nigella Lawson or Martha Stewart, all of these people with a track record. You know, they've got a podium to preach from. They're experienced cooks. They're professional chefs. They know what they're doing when it comes to domestic lifestyle choices. This woman, what does she know? Why on earth? You know, it's like, oh, here's our baked cake for my friend. Look, here's some strawberries. Oh, look, you know, I'm looking for flowers. What on earth is this all about?
Well, I mean, she's the princess of plagiarism. If you look at some of the projects that are featured in the trailer, they're, you know, things you could find on Pinterest right now. The little ladybugs that, the tomato ladybugs, things like that. I mean, I'm sorry, but ice cream and strawberries, there's nothing groundbreaking about that.
Ice cream and strawberries? This woman's a genius.
I know.
What a combination.
Gordon Ramsay is going into hiding right now. I can feel it in his bones. But yeah, no, you're right. She doesn't have the qualifications. This is just, I think what's so tragic to me, because I agree with you, do you believe in tragic? What's so tragic to me is that she married a prince. She had the most incredible platform ever. You know, the British royal family is, I hate the word iconic, it's used too much, but they are iconic. The association, the closeness that she had to the Queen, I mean, just the fact that there was a point in her life where she could potentially call Queen Elizabeth. She let all of that go to be a reality star. And to do something that she was attempting to do in 2015 and in 2016 before she met Prince Harry, this is just, you know, an extension of the TIG. And what a decline, what a professional decline, because I'd also stress in 2015 or 2016, if she pitched that show to Netflix or anybody, they'd say, who the hell are you? And they'd also say, there are a million shows that look exactly like what you just showed us that are already on TV. She got this gig because of who she married. I'd also stress that there were a whole lot of white women that watching white women eating ice cream is personally not my jam. And I just don't understand who her target audience is in her head. Yeah. Because what is that?
Exactly what I think, Kinsey. And here's the thing about Meghan. You and I have discussed this before. Her problem, ever since her and Harry appointed themselves, you know, big Hollywood producers of television series, producers of podcasts. We're going to entertain the world. We're going to change the world with our fabulous programs, our entertaining programs. She has no idea what's entertaining. She has no idea what's boring. And I'll tell you what's boring. What's boring is watching a load of beaming, as you say, middle-class white women standing around in a greenhouse, which she pretends is her own house. It's not hers. They're not even filming. She doesn't even have the good sense to film it at her own home. They go and film it somewhere else, at another mansion. But she doesn't understand that, oh, look, I made some strawberries and cream and ice cream. Oh, look, I made little ladybirds. You know, she doesn't understand. This stuff is boring. It's deathly dull. That's her problem, isn't it? She has no idea what people want to watch or listen to.
Well, I think that is the problem with you, Kevin, is that you have common sense. I mean, I think that's bigger picture the issue, but to me, what was so horrible was how frivolous and freaking stupid after America dealt with 2 back-to-back terror attacks in a span of 24 hours. Meghan is going to provide us joy by standing in a florist's, space, picking her favorite color. I'm sorry, but how ignorant are you? Read the room.
Yeah, very, very bad timing. Totally agree. She should have delayed it. Nobody wants to see the promotion of a stupid little cooking show the day after a terrible terrorist atrocity that shocked America, in fact, shocked the world. So terrible, terrible timing. But of course, she wants this series to sort of coincide with the relaunch, if you like, of her ill-fated lifestyle site, American Riviera Orchard, which we know was actually launched back in March, hasn't sold a damn thing yet, has been trapped in, lost in kind of legal wrangling. It's in a complete mess over trademarks and so on and so forth, and you know, copyright and so on. So it's in a mess. But she wants this series to promote that. Well, let's before we chat about this, let's remind ourselves all those months ago, March it was, of the film that she put out to promote American Riviera Orchard. Take it away, Meghan. She hasn't got a clue, has she? What's that supposed to be? Anyway, that was from March. Still hasn't sold a damn thing. Now, if she thinks that American Riviera Orchard will be relaunched from the fabulous launching pad that is With Love Meghan, she's got another thing coming. I don't think anybody's going to watch With Love Meghan.
Well, we're all, out of morbid curiosity, we might all take a peek at
Oh, yeah, the first episode, yeah. Bit like a podcast series.
Exactly. I just want to reiterate how terrible her timing is. She sits down with Oprah Winfrey. Prince Philip dies a month later. She sits down with The Cut magazine. Queen Elizabeth dies weeks after the Cut magazine interview, where Meghan threatens the royal family basically by saying, oh, I didn't have to sign an NDA. And guess what? I found a journal at Frogmore Cottage. The Queen dies weeks later. You know, the king announces that he is currently suffering from cancer. The world gasps. And Meghan announces the launch of American Riviera Orchard. The Princess of Wales announces, you know, guess what? I have decided to come back. I'm going to be at Trooping. I'm feeling a little bit better because she, unfortunately, suffering from cancer too at the time. And then Nacho Polo posts Meghan's dog biscuits on Instagram. I have never met somebody. It's like we laugh about this all the time. Tina Brown. Meghan is flawless at getting it wrong. Yeah. The timing on all of this is insane. She's had this Instagram account since 2022. She could not hold off 24 to 48 hours after a terror attack because, Kevin, as we discussed, Archie's godmother, she lost her stepson in that attack. Yeah. You know, how is Meghan feeling knowing that while she was frolicking on the beach, practicing 2025 and uploading that to Instagram, you know, Archie's godmother was grieving the loss of a son. She is so terrible at this. Maybe it's time to give it a rest.
So the Daily Telegraph over here, their review, the headline on the cooking show was, "What I've always wanted, a lesson from Meghan on freezing an edible flower inside an ice cube." I mean...
and how much did you laugh when the chef said your family now? Because it's like, okay, well, since you guys are family, she's going to change her phone number and never talk to you again. That's not a compliment.
Yeah. And she says that this cookery show is about taking something pretty ordinary and elevating it. But enough of Harry. Let's talk about the show itself. She says it's not about perfection, it's about joy. Well, you know, I don't want to see... if I'm going to watch a TV show about cooking and flour, I want it to be perfection. I want it to be something to aim for. Not, oh, it's all right if your cake's rubbish. What is the point of this? I don't get it. Oh, she's basically saying, I'm an average cook, nothing special, I'll cook a few things, and it's all about joy. As I say, again, I'm going to come back to my theme. This woman hasn't got a clue. She does not know how to entertain people. Why is this entertaining? Why do I want to see her freezing edible flowers in ice cubes, really?
I honestly felt like that quote about it's not about perfection, it's about making mistakes. I felt like a publicist told her to say that so she would appear to be a little bit more humble, because it is Meghan telling us how impressed Meghan Markle is with Meghan Markle in that trailer. You know, like, I just turn ordinary things extraordinary. I know how to pick out a pretty colored flower. It's Meghan telling us how great she is. I felt like that was a publicist saying, hey, pump the brakes, say sometimes I make mistakes, because at the end of the day, Kevin, aside from being a quick cash out of the Netflix deal that we both know is not going to be renewed at the level that it was initially, this is an attempt at Meghan to rebrand herself for the 500th time, but this is Meghan trying to change public perception. We know her as a bully. Yeah. And so Meghan wants to say, with love, my dad's had a couple of heart attacks. I don't take his calls, but I'm so sweet.
That's exactly what I was going to say. She said something about, you know, that she loves preparing food and stuff for friends to prove how much she's been thinking about them. You know, what a lovely person she is. You know, again, it comes down to this backdrop. Oh, I'm so lovely and I think about my friends and, you know, it's all about joy, not perfection. Isn't this wonderful? What about your dad? 2 heart attacks and a stroke. Close to death, to be honest with you. 80 years old, and you won't let him see his grandchildren. You haven't spoken to him for, what is it now, 4 years? Because he had the temerity to talk to the press before your wedding. You haven't spoken to the rest of your family. Frankly, I believe because you think they're a bit sort of blue collar, a bit downscale, and therefore embarrassing to your pretensions to be a member of the royal family. You're not a member of the royal family. You just married into it and took a title. Nobody regards Meghan Markle as royal. You know, I mean, given though, Kinsey, that this is her last roll of the dice. If that show, what is it, Meghan with Love, fails, and I think it will, you know, there goes American Riviera Orchard, there goes their Netflix contract, there goes all of her showbiz pretensions. This is make or break this in the next couple of months for her, and I say she breaks.
Well, I mean, she is determined to make 2025 her year. That is why someone in her camp linked to Page 6 that 2025 was going to be all about the Markle sparkle. That's why, despite multiple terror attacks, Meghan decided to jump on Instagram and say, look at me, look at me. Yeah. She's going to drive. I think she's going to be all over the place this year, but she doesn't have thick enough skin to handle the rejection that is coming her way. Of the 1 million people that viewed the trailer on YouTube, over 103,000 people have disliked that video. Less than 13,000 people have liked that video. That's 89% negative feedback when it comes to her trailer. Comments are on, they're glorious. Comments off on her personal Instagram account. She can't handle the heat. So I think she's determined right now, but I think she might not like the reaction she gets.
It ain't gonna work, I don't think. And just a quick word, couple of last points, Kinsey. First point, she, as we discussed earlier, suddenly goes back on Instagram just before Christmas, posting that ludicrous video of her being carefree and lovable on the beach. So contrived, so tacky. But going back onto Instagram now, as I recall, her and that lapdog husband of hers, old Ginger, what's his name, Harry, they left social media because they were worried about online harm, right? They came off social media, but she needs it now to promote her programme, her silly little cooking show, and American Riviera Orchard. So suddenly she has lost all of her qualms about social media when it's of use to her.
Yeah, said on that South by Southwest panel with Katie Couric and Brooke Shields, and said the way she dealt with online bullying was by not having social media, and that people were cruel and catty to her online. Absolutely. But I also would stress that somebody close to her told Page 6 that she is personally working with Facebook Meta to ensure that it's to improve people's social media experiences, less bullying. She wants to show that you can bring joy joy.
Oh,
Kamala, that's his favorite word.
Yeah,
Through social media.
Yeah, two things about that. That is just pathetic. And two, she's not talking to Facebook about bringing joy to Facebook or Meta users. It's just not true, is it? It's just nonsense. Last question to you, Kinsey. Good to be talking to you again. It's always fun. What about him, that appendage of hers, Prince Harry? I mean, he seems to have found a role for himself, at least, filming his wife on the beach, stamping his footprints. But I mean, what's going to become I think this year for Meghan is going to be disastrous, I think. I really hope it's not, but I think it will be. What about him? What's he going to do this year?
Well, I mean, you're right. Instagram boyfriend, just chasing her around, ensuring that he gets the right angle or he gets the wrath, allegedly. Ask the Sussex Survivors Club. What is he going to do? He's Butter Up is going to continue to pay him a lot of money to do very little. I'm sure he's going to continue to work with some of the charities that he has over the years. That's where he flourishes. That's where he needs to stay in that lane. No one wants Polo 2.0.
Yeah, that's been an absolute disaster. And as I said earlier, and I maintain I was right, I think that Meghan with Love will go down exactly the same route as Polo, right into the waste bin. People aren't going to watch it. They might, you're right, I'll watch the first one. But, you know, I mean, those lifestyle shows are boring enough as it is. But with someone with no qualifications, here's me in the house that my husband bought, you know, looking happy with a cake. Where's the entertainment value? There isn't any. There isn't any. Therefore, that series will fail. Kinsey, great to hook up with you again. I believe we'll be talking again tomorrow for your excellent podcast, Recollections May Vary. That's great. Kinsey Schofield making her return to this show, and she will, of course, continue to appear on a regular basis. Always good to talk to Kinsey. Next up, rest of the show, all the way till 10 o'clock when Petri Hoskin takes over. It's going to be your calls. It's all yours from now on. Get your calls in, 0344 499 1000. Let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk.
Us on and accuse us of being lying and yes. fraudulent
What's
about our membership numbers.
Wasn't she asked to apologise?
We got a number of different media channels and journalists in to check the actual database, the back end, proved that we were right, she was completely wrong, and just said, look, we all make mistakes. Just apologise, Kemi. She's refused to do that. So Nigel announced over the weekend that we're going to make our own constituency seat a key target at the next general election, just to give Kemi a little bit of something to think about.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back, guys. Straight to the phones. Just a couple of messages. First, this is from Skyfall. Evening, Kev. Will two-tier Keir now be smashing the gangs, as in grooming gangs? I don't think so, Skyfall, I'm afraid. Unlikely. More gangs that he won't smash. He's not smashing the migrant smuggling gangs, and he won't be smashing the grooming gangs either. And here's one from Steve Forrest. Steve says, Starmer is running very afraid over the call for a rape gang inquiry. He's hiding something and covering for someone or something, possibly himself. I hope some whistleblower with a backbone and guts comes forwards and spills the beans. Don't forget Maggie Oliver, to her eternal credit, already did this. In Rotherham alone, 1,400 victims, 1,400 young girls were raped, sexually abused, groomed. 1,400 just in Rotherham, one town. Plus loads of towns across the north, Rochdale, of course. The numbers are extraordinary. Thousands and thousands of kids abused by Pakistani grooming gangs. Good, isn't it? No, it's not good. It's a disgrace. And the government should do something about it. There should be an inquiry. Don't call us right-wing because we want an inquiry. How dare you, you stupid little man. Seriously. Let's go to Martin in Cambridge. Hello, Martin.
Hello, Kevin. I've calmed down a bit since I spoke to your producer. I was
stay annoyed. I like people to be annoyed, but I mean, I think you're annoyed about what I'm very annoyed about. This for me, I mean, you know, the camel's back was already seriously broken as far as I'm concerned with this Labour government and Keir Starmer. But should there be a straw that broke the camel's back even more? What he said today, that anyone who feels there should be a public inquiry into this grooming gang scandal on behalf of nothing else, of the poor little victims. Anyone who feels that, he said, we're right-wing, we're far-right, we're climbing on a far-right bandwagon. It's far-right to want an inquiry into this disgrace, this national disgrace. Why is that far-right, do you think, Martin?
They're using the same playbook like they did with Brexit. The real thing that made me almost apoplectic is the fact that they are using the same tropes and the same tactics that were used against the young girls over the last 20 years. If you complain, you're a racist. If you complain, you know, you're trying to get these gangs. You know, it's just absolutely foul, and to actually do this. It just besmirches all of us. It demeans the British public. Yeah. He's treating us as fools. Yeah. You know, and it's just abhorrent.
And you're so right, Martin, that he's basically citing the exact problem that allowed the grooming gangs to prosper. He's basically saying that if you got worries about grooming gangs, if you've got worries about young girls being raped by Pakistani predators, then you're a racist, you're right-wing, you're far-right. I mean, come on. It's just outrageous.
It's not far right. It's just right.
Yeah, it's not. It's right in the strict sense of the word right. It is right to have a public inquiry.
It's a righteous thing to do.
And it's not a political standpoint to feel that those poor young girls who were let down by the police, by the social workers, by the authorities, because they're also worried about being called racists, on behalf of those girls, we need a public inquiry. And for Keir Starmer to say that those of us who feel that must be far right, it's disgusting. I think it's deranged as well. It's mad.
It's totally mad. All these people on the left are mad. They are deranged. They see race in everything. What we see as normal people, and we are normal, it's them that are weirdos, is that we can see what the problems are. It's not a race thing. You know, it's just matter of fact.
Totally right.
And they will not take fact for an option. They just cannot believe that anything to do with immigration or anything is a problem. And it is.
Problem? It's a national crisis. It really is. Martin, you and I apparently are far right because we want an inquiry. But what a disgrace and what a good call. Thank you very much for ringing. Ring again. Martin in Cambridge, I think expressing the fury that many of us feel today with the fact that our so-called Prime Minister, that excuse for a little man, says that we're far right if we want an inquiry into what went wrong with these grooming gangs, these rape gangs. What went wrong? We want to find out, if only for the poor victims, thousands of them. I think, do you know, in Rotherham alone, 1,400 victims, 1,400 little girls groomed, raped, drugged, sexually abused, treated like animals. 1,400 in one town. This is on a big scale, and also, if you think it's over, it's not. Listen, we're going to go to break now, but when we come back, take more of your calls. Mark in Lincolnshire, hang on. Jason in Sheffield, hang on, and get more of your calls in 0344 499 1000. Let's continue this conversation. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is from Julia in Mansfield. She's talking about this Prime Minister of ours that we're lumbered with, calling us far right if we want an inquiry into the grooming gangs scandal. How dare you say that? How dare you say that? Jess Phillips, you can go to hell as well. Blocking. Oh, she really cares about vulnerable kids. Well, don't block the inquiry then. You're doing it for political reasons because Starmer was the Director of Prosecutions, Public Prosecutions, while this was going on, and he acted very late to say the least. So who knows what might come out in a public inquiry. It would embarrass your dear leader, not ours, yours. And Jess Phillips, she cares so much. She's a great woman. She cares so much. Well, why did she block an inquiry? And if you care about those kids, they deserve an inquiry. How dare you? Don't you tell me that's a great woman. That is not a great woman. That is the opposite of a great woman. That's a snivelling little politician doing what is politically expedient for her useless, incompetent boss and her hopeless party. That's what that is. At the expense of the kids who deserve a public inquiry. How dare they? How absolutely dare they? It's dreadful, dreadful. Let's go to Mark in Lincolnshire. Hi, Mark. Happy New Year to you. Good to hear from you.
Hi there, Kev. Happy New Year, mate. You keeping all right?
Back to the grindstone. But, you know, I've come back on a day where, even by my own standards, I'm very, very angry about this. How dare Keir Starmer call us far right if we want a public inquiry into the grooming scandals? 1,400 victims in Rotherham alone. Thousands of victims, and this government of ours, Jess Phillips, the Home Office Minister, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, don't feel we need a public inquiry. Only for one reason, because it wouldn't be good for them. Simple as that, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, the other thing as well that you have to bear in mind with all this, like you were saying there, the 1,400 in Rotherham alone, I mean, this has been going on, 10 to 15 towns that we know of. Nobody's even bothered looking into the cities yet, as far as I can tell anyway. If you're talking, because you probably are looking at tens of thousands of victims, young girls that have been victims of this. So exactly how many perpetrators are there? You're talking literally, because these are all Pakistani Muslims, or vast majority of them are, it's like 90% I believe. When you talk potentially thousands of them have been up to this. And that's one of the reasons I think that they don't want a broad spectrum inquiry, to actually get right into the root and the bottom of all this. And obviously the other reason, my personal opinion on it, is to do so will expose such a massive hole in multiculturalism that they'll have to admit it's failed. And that's something they can't stand. They cannot stand the fact that they might just have been wrong about something.
I agree with that. I agree with that, Mark. But I think there's more to it. I mean, I think if you want to boil it right down, in the end, I think this comes down to political mathematics. Labour are going to need the Muslim vote at the next election, and this inquiry would alienate our Islamic friends who live here in this country. The Islam community would be alienated by it, and they wouldn't like Labour for initiating such an inquiry. Therefore, Labour won't initiate such an inquiry. The other awkward element for them is, of course, that during much of the time this was going on, who was Director of Public Prosecutions? A certain Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer was Director of DPP from 2008 to 2013. Today he's boasting. So I was the one that initiated prosecutions. I green-lighted prosecutions in 2013. Now, in 2011, the Times exposed all of this. It was in the newspaper of what was going on, the grooming gang scandal. So he knew about it probably much longer, but he certainly knew about it for 2 years. He did nothing. So I think what they're worried about is, A, the numbers, the mathematics of politics. We need the Muslims to be our friends. An inquiry into Muslim grooming gangs, that would be a bit awkward. We might lose a few votes there. Let's not have an inquiry. Also, an inquiry would expose the failings and dreadful shortcomings of our lousy then Director of Public Prosecutions, Keir Starmer. 2 reasons why they're not doing it, both of which are very craven, disgusting. What about the kids? What about the victims?
Absolutely. I mean, what you're saying there about the numbers for Labour and stuff, you're absolutely right. However, you see, the thing is, to me, which something I don't really understand with this, is, we know not all Muslims are involved in this. Do you know what I mean? But the point I would make with that, the point I would make with that is, surely they, as much as anybody else, want this out in the open, want this exposed for what it actually was. you know, surely they also want to make sure that it doesn't happen from within their community anymore. And yet to date, there's no word from their, you know, these so-called community leaders. You know, what's going on? You know,
I think you're right, Mark. You're right. But we should stress, you know, that this is only concerns or involves very few Muslims, very few by comparison with the total. But I think that the reason the Labour won't like an inquiry or won't initiate one in terms of the politics of it is there's always a very noisy minority who will make life very difficult for the Labour government should they get this thing going. And as I say, also, who knows what horrors lie underneath the filing cabinets of those days in terms of what the Director of Prosecutions was up to, public prosecutions, and that was Keir Starmer. So what we're being subjected to is political expediency at the expense of the victims who deserve a public inquiry. And that's disgusting, frankly. Mark, good to talk to you again, as always. Please call me again, I know you will. Mark in Lincolnshire. Let's go to break now. When we come back, Jason in Sheffield, stay where you are. You're next. And all the rest of you, stay tuned.
On and accuse us of being lying and fraudulent about our membership numbers.
Wasn't she asked to apologise?
We got a number of different media channels and journalists in to check the actual database, the back end, proved that we were right, she was completely wrong, and just said, look, we all make mistakes, just apologise, Kemi. She's refused to do that, so Nigel announced over the weekend that we're going to make our own constituency seat a key target at the next general election, just to give Kemi a little bit of something to think about.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Quick message, a WhatsApp message from Keith. Keith Lucock. He says, so in Starmer land, calling for an inquiry to discover the truth makes you a right-wing thug. Well, in my opinion, that's a very dangerous precedent to set and speaks volumes of what will be hidden and where the blame lays. I totally agree. You know, we've had this narrative before. Anything he doesn't like, he says, oh, far right, far right. So he doesn't like us calling for a national public inquiry because I think it would be embarrassing for him, make him look bad, be bad for Labour. So, because we're calling for them, we're far right. You know, it's like the riots, wasn't it, during the summer? Far-right thugs, far-right thugs. He took away their thought processes when we said, well, they're protest. That's not protest. Well, it was actually, Keir. You might not like that form of protest. I don't like that form of protest. Still a protest. They were protesting your mishandling of the migrant crisis. Simple as that. Now they're going to protest your mishandling, potentially, of the Rochdale or the grooming gang scandal when you were DPP. You don't like that, so because you call us far right. Anytime people do, anytime anyone does anything or says anything that this dork in number 10 Downing Street doesn't like, far right, you're far right thugs. Change, far right, change. Oh, shut up, you stupid little man. Honestly, I think the nation has had enough of this guy. Honestly, it's just, I've been away for a couple of weeks. Watching it from afar was like watching a car crash in slow motion. People are laughing at this country. We have got the worst Prime Minister I think we've probably ever had, and I include Liz Truss. At least she had the decency to leave very, very swiftly. This guy's digging his heels in, and I don't like the idea of that. Let's do some voice notes. This is, it just says McLaughlin, and he's on Starmer.
I'm absolutely disgusted and appalled at the absolute state of our so-called leader and PM. Apparently I'm far right because I want to see these absolute disgraces of humanity locked up. And as for our PM not wanting to hear other politicians talking about things, you're a politician, mate. It's their right to debate you. And I'm absolutely sick of hearing about, oh, the Conservatives didn't do this for 14 years. You're supposed to be a leader. Step up and put their rights wrong. Joke shop.
Well, McLaughlin, I wish you put your first name on it because that was a really, really strong WhatsApp voice note. Couldn't agree with you more. And I think McLaughlin there, I wish I had a first name. It sounds rude. McLaughlin is making a really good point. Speaking on behalf, I think, of millions of people. We're sick of this guy. We're sick of this government. They're liars. You know, and they're trying to politicise the grooming gang scandal. Far right, no, we're not far right. We just want justice for those kids, thousands of them, raped, sexually assaulted, abused by Pakistani male grooming gangs. We just want justice. And you call us far right? How dare you? Let's move on to another WhatsApp voice note. This is Chloe.
Hi, Kevin. I just wanted to add about the Muslim child rape gangs. I don't doubt that there are people in the Labour Party that would welcome an inquiry, as well as probably some Muslims as well. So not only is he labelled Conservatives as far right, he's also managed to offend people on the left too. The man's an absolute nutter.
Very good point, Chloe. You know, we sit around vilifying the Labour Party, vilifying Labour politicians. We must never forget there's a lot of decent people in that party, and a lot of those decent people are appalled by what Starmer and Reeves and those ruthless, shark-eyed socialists are doing. You know, the axing of the winter fuel allowance, disgusting. Attacking rural communities with their inheritance tax nonsense, disgusting. Now they're talking now about taking away more rights for pensioners, taking away their health rights. It's just getting ridiculous. Enough. Here's Ricky on the grooming gangs.
Hi, Kev. As for these rape gangs, I don't believe there should be a public inquiry, as it would drag on for years, cost lots of money, and it would be swept under the carpet anyway. There should be a police investigation reopened, with teachers, council workers, social workers, politicians, and even police officers connected with these cases at the time brought in for questioning and criminal proceedings undertaken to secure convictions.
Well, I'm with you to an extent there. Yes, there should be a police investigation. Some of the worst offenders, if you like, in not protecting these poor kids, the grooming gang rape victims, were coppers. Coppers were the worst. They're the ones who swept it aside. They're the ones who tried to silence Maggie Oliver when she said, this is wrong, we've got to do something. So coppers, will coppers investigate themselves with the appropriate amount of rigour? I doubt it. I think a public inquiry, because it will heap embarrassment on Keir Starmer, embarrassment on politicians, embarrassment on the police, on the social services, on the authorities, everyone who let those poor kids down. So that's why I think there should be a public inquiry. I don't normally go for public inquiries. I'm with you, Ricky. They're usually, or Tristan, they're usually a waste of money and time. Right, here's a last WhatsApp voice note. This is, again, on the grooming gangs. This is from Tristan.
Keir Starmer as our Prime Minister is nothing but a total disgrace. Asking for a public inquiry as regards to the grooming gangs scandal, no, that's not far right. That's the right thing to do. There has to be some accountability, and this useless, pathetic, bad government needs to take some responsibility for this. It's utterly disgraceful. Hate is a strong word, and I hate this government. I hate them.
I'll tell you what, Tristan, I mean, well said, well said. I try to avoid such emotions, but I mean, my contempt for this government knows no bounds. I mean, every day, in every way, they prove to us they're ideological, they're like student activists, they're useless, they're ridiculous, and they're letting us all down. They're running this country abysmally. Petri Hoskins will be in fairly soon to tell you what she's got lined up for your entertainment for the rest of the night from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m, so stand by for that. But in the meantime, let's go to Jason in Sheffield. Jason, you want to talk about this intriguing row between Elon Musk and Nigel Farage. What do you make of it?
I don't think it is a row. I think it's a tactical masterclass.
Why? It doesn't make anyone look very good, does it?
No.
So what's the tactical masterclass here?
Who has talked about all day?
Yeah, but what do you mean? I mean, you know...
Talk is talk.
We talked about the Yorkshire Ripper all day when he got convicted. Doesn't mean that's good news for him, does it? This story does not make Reform UK look very good. It is not a good day for Nigel Farage. This is not a masterclass. He's in a situation that is very awkward and embarrassing for him. Admittedly, it's down to Elon Musk, who, shall we say, I'm a big fan of Elon's, but he's unpredictable. Nobody, I think, is calculating this. Nobody plotted this, because if Nigel Farage plotted this, he's a political idiot, and he is not a political idiot. He's very astute. This situation is not good for him, so I don't believe we've got any kind of masterclass going on. He has been plunged into this situation, and he doesn't like it, and quite rightly.
Well, the thing is, Reform didn't really get much of a mention on mainstream media. We do get a mention on Talk a lot, I must admit.
Well, yeah, and they do. They make a lot of noise. They've got 5 MPs. They are getting it. Look, it's politics. It's not just about getting talked about. You can get talked about in politics. I mean, Keir Starmer gets talked about a lot, but it's not good for him. So, you know, there's more to politics than just getting talked about. And Farage and Reform UK will not be comfortable in this situation, and quite rightly so.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they're being talked about and being
talked about. Yeah, but that, as I just said, no, so, but they're not in showbiz. It's no good being talked about in a bad way.
Politics is showbiz, Kev.
For ugly people. For ugly people.
Showbiz.
Yeah, I must go into politics, I think. Listen, Jason, I mean, I take your point, but this was not calculated. This is not a masterclass. This is a situation that Nigel and the gang would prefer not to be in. I hope they reach some kind of arrangement with Elon Musk as soon as possible. But point taken, Jason. Good call. Keep in touch. Thank you. Jason in Sheffield. Very quickly, Frank in Bristol. Hello, Frank.
Hello, James.
they tell us that
Kevin
sentencing is... sorry, Kevin. The sentencing is due to government guidelines. That's what they tell us.
Yeah.
Okay. They took me to court 10 years ago for what they called evasion of VAT. I didn't pay the VAT bill.
Yeah.
They gave me 6 years, 8 months.
So if you didn't pay your VAT bill, then you were evading it?
Well, yes. I wasn't evading it. I just kept it. So, you know...
You got 6 years for that. You got 6 years.
7. Just under 7. Just under 7. 6 years, 8 months.
Blimey.
Right? 40 minutes later, the same judge in the same courtroom had a man in front of him for raping a 14-month-old baby boy. The judge said he's too young to remember it, so it won't affect his life, so I will suspend your sentence.
You're joking. You're joking. Well, I don't think that's right. Two-tier justice, mate. Two-tier justice. So are you paying your VAT these days, Frank?
Oh, I deregistered. Wait, I lost my bottle.
Well, I'm glad you're out. You're free and fancy-free, footloose and fancy-free again. Sorry about what happened to you, but you know what they're like. You know, the worst crime you could possibly commit is take money from the tax man. If the tax man senses he's not getting his full due, they'll bang you up. It's the worst crime possible. But Frank, thank you for the call. Good call. Thank you very much. Call me again. Frank in Bristol. And Patrick Hoskin is in the studio. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Don't you look healthy?
Well, yes.
I've
been in the sun.
Yeah, you have been in the sun. You look very healthy.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Whereas I'm sort of pale and uninteresting.
I was going to say... No, I wasn't going to say that. What have you got coming up on your show?
Well, we're having a deep dive into these health reforms because something's not adding up, and that's the cost of all of this and the time frame. So I'm going to be looking at that with somebody who actually does know the numbers.
And we talked about the sort of the pledge to cut...
Yeah.
Waiting lists.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, like this, but just we've got time. So, West Streeting, you know, a lot of people say, oh, yeah, we could put a lot of store by West. Yeah, I'm going to reform. It's not reforming anything. It's just making stupid statements like, oh, we're going to get rid of useless appointments.
Exactly.
What does that mean?
Also,
what does that mean?
Many of these things were brought in by the Tories, but of course they wouldn't talk about